Marvel. Game Maker System by NunuXD Chapter 201-216. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. So guys, this will be the last video of Marvel Game Maker System, so I decided to add comments of this chapters under them. It will be a one-time thing. Please tell me about how you feel about this in comments. Walking through Uzumaki village, Alex was surprised to see that everything was very quiet and calm, as if no one was there. Looking around curiously, he saw that even the clerk of a noodle shop was sitting comfortably in a chair with his cell phone in his hand, browsing the Oasis. Since the person's senses were still active in the real world, if someone talked to a person who was connected to the Oasis, they could immediately disconnect from the virtual world. And considering the security of this village, which consisted mostly of people from the same family, the security here was the best he had ever seen. Every few minutes, someone could be seen running around the town, the genin he had hired as couriers, delivering cell phones to the few people who still didn't have them. After walking around the city, Alex logged into Oasis using his personal account with the nickname of A. He felt more comfortable in this world, where he could act like Alex and use his own appearance, instead of always having to pretend to be Notch with a perfect personality. Since his avatar in the Oasis was the same as his appearance in real life, when he walked the streets of Lobby 75, people said hello and bowed slightly when they saw him. Since they were in the Oasis, the land where Alex claimed to be the daimyo, they thought that the least they could do was show respect to Alex. Especially when they had read the terms of use of the Oasis and knew that they could be banished from the place without ever being able to return, and it was the Oasis team that had the right to do so, and as the daimyo of the place, Alex would certainly have the right to do so. With how much fun Oasis was, being banished from here, never to return, was something they definitely didn't want to do. Looking at the places people went, Alex noticed that they liked to buy food and clothes and watch movies in the theaters. For this lobby, the Oasis AI chose only the movies that were most similar in theme to the time people lived here, so they would understand more about what the story was about, and from what he saw, the movies were a big hit. Even more so with the sale of snacks, salted and buttered popcorn, sweet and caramelized popcorn. These were all things that the people of this world had never seen before. And since the price of these things was so low because they weren't real, people made the most of them. As he walked through the streets of the city, a slightly familiar 40-year-old woman came up to him, a little embarrassed. "Mr. Alex, sorry to interrupt," she said as she bowed. Surprised, Alex just shook his head as he replied with a polite, warm smile. "Don't worry, you don't have to be so polite to me." Standing up and looking at Alex, she couldn't maintain eye contact for long and looked elsewhere, clearly not knowing how to say what she wanted to say. "You can talk, I won't be angry if you have any complaints. We're always working to make this environment as comfortable as possible and your feedback is always welcome," Alex said, trying to reassure her. But when she heard that, she was startled and quickly denied it. "No, Mr. Alex, I don't want to complain about anything. Everything here is very amazing and wonderful. I'm just a little worried." "Worried?" Alex asked, intrigued. "Yes, it's just that I have a restaurant in the real world, but today very few people came to my restaurant, and after tasting so much delicious food at the Oasis for such low prices, I'm worried that people won't come to my restaurant anymore," she lamented. "This is my family's only source of income, apart from the support the village gives my husband since he's a retired ninja on disability." Hearing this, Alex finally understood her concern and opened a screen in front of him. Seeing Alex open the screen out of nowhere, she was shocked at how easy it was for him to control the Oasis screens, as she had a hard time doing it, but Alex doing it looked so elegant. But when she saw him clicking on the screen several times, Haruka Uzumaki felt her heart flutter, afraid that he would banish her right now. Afraid of getting in his way and making him angry, Haruka just remained silent, regretting that she had come to talk to him. After what seemed to be an eternity, Alex finally answered. Ms. Uzumaki, I've just been researching the possible causes and results of this, and I think this news might please you, and I even have a little suggestion for you. Alex said with a smile. Seeing that Alex wasn't angry, Haruka finally managed to relax and became curious about what Alex had to tell her. What is it, Mr. Alex? First of all, the reason why so few people have come to your restaurant is that everyone is too busy getting to know Oasis, which is a novelty, and they're probably even ignoring the hunger they feel in the real world. Alex explained patiently. Nodding her head, Haruka could understand that since she herself hadn't even eaten today and was just wandering around the Oasis. Secondly, the result of this is that even though these people are tasting a lot of food in the Oasis during this time, they will be tempted to try tasty food in the real world as well, causing them to go out and look for good restaurants in the real world to eat in, which could be good news for your restaurant. Alex went on to explain. Another thing is that these people might even be staying in the Oasis for so long that they won't have time to cook food in the real world and will have to go out to eat where the food is already prepared, so it would be a good idea to be prepared to receive some hungry customers at some point. Hearing this explanation, Haruka's eyes lit up as she imagined that this was really the case. Thank you, Mr. Alex, I'll get ready for that, she said excitedly as she prepared to leave. Calm down, Alex said laughing. I still haven't given you the tip that could help your restaurant even more. Hearing this, Haruka looked at Alex in surprise as she thought the tip Alex was going to give was about preparing for customers. You've already helped me a lot, Mr. Alex. Don't worry, the tip I have to give you is to look at the shops available for rent in Lobby 75. Think about it, if you rent a shop and open a restaurant like yours in the Oasis, you can make money virtually, but you can also advertise your restaurant to more people, get other people to try your food, and even turn those people into potential customers for your restaurant in the real world. Alex said. Hearing this, Haruka's eyes, which had been very bright before, were now like powerful beacons with $sign designs, as she could see the potential in what Alex was saying. And I have a little news for you that might cheer you up even more. Oasis is only available in Uzumaki Village for now, but just imagine if people from all over the world could come to your Oasis restaurant and taste your food, like it, and even come to your restaurant in the real world, how lucrative that could be. Alex drew a large cake for Haruka. And when she heard these possibilities that Alex said, Haruka could completely imagine the scene of her restaurant receiving tourists from all over the world, all just to taste the food she makes. How incredible would that be? Thank you, Mr. Alex, I'll familiarize myself with the Oasis and rent a shop here as soon as I understand how everything works, she said excitedly as she bowed and then opened the virtual assistant and prepared to ask various questions to understand everything she needed to know to rent a shop in the Oasis. Alex smiled and nodded politely at her and left, happy to spread the word to the people of this world about the opportunities they would have to make money with Oasis. Even the delivery option would be great for Oasis. Imagine someone eating in the virtual restaurant and the same food arriving at their home in a few minutes. There were many entrepreneurial visions that existed in the modern world that people in this world didn't know about because they were only focused on the battles and wars between ninjas. Comments. Help April 28, 2024. 1. Get people addicted to Oasis. 2. Have people solve their differences in Oasis. 3. Threaten anyone who wished to take their fights IRL with a ban if it goes too far. Countries will be far more receptive to world peace if their people are addicted to Oasis. Domain_Samic_Winters May 2, 2024. Why to get feeling of evil cult or criminal empire from the comment above and then placing it next to Mick and his Oasis. I don't think my mortal soul let alone godly beings can handle such comparison. Blob Dizzy. Nimea 00 July 17, 2024. At domain_Samic_Winters it's a basic business strategy. It works even better when you take in account no one can do what Alex do. Less war to less deaths to more potential players to money. Demon Tank April 28, 2024. Can't wait to see what happens when a Jinchuriki uses it considering what happened to the hull. Chapter 202. While Alex walked around the Oasis and saw how the Uzumaki accepted the things the Oasis had to offer, Kato looked at the results of the battles of the ninjas who had spent a few hours in life and death fights with the other players from other worlds, and the result made him smile. Out of the 100 battles between ninjas of the same rank who fought each other, the ninjas who won in 95 battles were the ones who participated in the training at the Oasis. Kazuki Uzumaki, the ninja who had captured the first Charmander in the world, said in surprise. "Okay Kazuki, what about the battles of the different ranks?" Kato asked with a broad smile. In the 100 test fights between the special Jonin who participated in the training and the normal Jonin who didn't participate in the training, 5 fights were won by the special Jonin. Kato said, even more surprised than before. The difference between a special Jonin and a normal Jonin may seem small in name only, but this difference is not just like the difference between a level 31 player and a level 33 player, but more like the difference between a level 29 player and a level 31 player. In both cases, the difference is only 1 level, but for real players, everyone knows that every 10 levels, your character gets a huge boost in power and unlocks new skills and abilities that didn't exist when you were 1 level lower. If the training of these special Jonin resulted in them winning 5 out of 100 battles, it could only mean one thing: these special Jonin were almost at the level of true Jonin, which was great news. The Jonin were the supreme fighting force of a village, so developing special Jonin into true Jonin was extremely expensive and dangerous. Knowing that he could make the ninja undergo these upgrades through simulated battles in a virtual genjutsu world was extremely lucrative. Very well, Kazuki, organize for each Anbu ninja to train in the arena for at least 4 hours a day. Let's set some rewards for the rank the ninja reaches to encourage everyone to train well and with dedication, including you. Kato said, smiling, imagining how strong the ninjas under him would become in no time. With the attack from the other villages coming in less than 2 months, any improvement he could achieve for the ninjas under him was already incredible, and with the potential improvement this arena could achieve, he might have a few more Jonin to help in the battle. Yes, Mr. Patriarch, Kazuki said excitedly. Also, put out a notice to all ninja, not just the Anbu, that they should also train in the arena and that they too can compete for the prizes just like the Anbu. Kato explained and received a nod from Kazuki. Looking at the red ball around his waist, Kato asked curiously. What was it like to live with little Charmander from yesterday to today? Kato asked. Looking down at his own waist, Kazuki smiled as he answered. My daughter loved him. It was hard to get her to sleep tonight because she wanted to play with Charmander all night long. Continuing, Kazuki began to answer his ninja analysis. From what I've observed of this little boy, his mentality is like that of a 3 or 4-year-old. He can understand what we say, especially me since I'm his trainer, but very complex commands are still very difficult for him to understand. I don't know if this is common to all Pokemon, or if Charmander is just like that because he's still a puppy. Nodding, Kato understood what Kazuki meant. If all Pokemon had the mentality of a small child like Charmander, it would mean that they could create much stronger bonds with the Pokemon by becoming like a father figure to them, as well as making the little creatures much more loyal and trustworthy for the same reasons mentioned above. This was great news. What about its strength? Have you been able to analyze it? Kato asked. Nodding his head, Kazuki answered. His strength is like Mr. Alex said, he has the strength of a genin, not very agile or physically strong, but with the power to do fire attacks or special taijutsu skills that temporarily increase his strength. All these attacks are at the level of a genin, but compared to a real genin, their childish mentality is a slight disadvantage, because an adult person can think of more complicated things in the middle of a fight and come out victorious with malice. With Kazuki's previous statement, Kato had already expected something like this from the Pokemon, but he wanted to clear up another doubt. So, in a battle between a Pokemon and a normal genin, what chance does Charmander have to win? Thinking for a moment, Kazuki answered. About a 30% chance that Charmander wins. If I train him, I think it goes up to 40%. Right, and if a Charmander fought alongside a genin who commanded him against another normal genin, what would be the chance that they would win? Kato asked. Thinking about this possibility, Kazuki didn't have to think about it for long and answered. The genin with the Charmander would definitely win the battle. Hearing that, a smile broke out on Kato's face. That was exactly what he wanted to know. For powerful Jonins like Kazuki, having a genin Pokémon on their side in battle would be more of a hindrance than a help. But for a genin fighting another genin, having a genin Pokémon help in battle was like turning the battle into 2 against 1. With the childlike and trusting mentality that young Pokémon have, we can encourage the genin in the village to capture a Pokémon in the Oasis and grow up with it. If the 2 of them train together and develop a relationship, they will grow in strength together, and when they mature, they will be like a Jonin duo with perfect synergy, just like the Gold and Silver brothers. Kato explained his thoughts, making Kazuki smile excitedly at the thought that this was really possible. Especially since they both had daughters, the thought of having bodyguards with them at all times was something that relieved them greatly, as they could never be ambushed alone and would always have a companion to fight alongside. Did Charmander give you any tips on how the Pokémon world works? Kato asked. But Kazuki just shook his head in frustration. In parts, yes, but the information I got wasn't very useful since Charmander is very young and knew almost nothing before he was captured by me. What did he say? Kato asked. Since our communication isn't very easy because it's hard to talk to him with the language barrier, the easiest thing I could think of was to ask him something that he could answer with a simple yes or no. What I found out is that he said they hatch in eggs, that 2 Pokémon of the same species can reproduce if they like each other, just like other animals in our world. I tried to ask him if there was interbreeding between different species, but he didn't know since he only lived in a Charizard's nest, Kazuki explained. I see. Kato nodded and listened with interest. Another thing I asked was how humans work in his world, but he didn't know because he only lived with other Charizards. I think the only useful information I got from him was that Pokémons could grow and develop on their own, but with a skilled trainer, they could progress much faster. According to him, this was something his mother had told him since he was born. Kazuki was explaining a very important piece of information. Hearing this, Kato nodded in satisfaction, but he thought it would be important to teach the academy students how to train Pokémons in the future, because if they learned how to train Pokémons better, just as specialized training worked for ninjas, it might work for Pokémons as well. Imagining the scene of hundreds of ninja alongside hundreds of Pokémon on a battlefield brought a big smile to Kato's face. The only problem was, when he thought about the cost of those 100 Pokémon, he realized that he might need to develop the Uzumaki land more economically. Maybe it would even be a good idea to invest more in ordinary people outside of the village, in order to make more profit when their strength increases. When they have enough power to protect a population of ordinary people, the country's income is sure to increase, since safety has always been the top priority for ordinary people when choosing where to live. Comments. Merle, May 1, 2024. I find it a little weird that the people of the Naruto world have yet to mention summoned beasts, and compare them to Pokémon. I would imagine the Uzumaki clan having a high amount of summoned beast contracts due to their capacity of chakra and knowledge of Fuinjutsu. Titavilis, May 1, 2024. Well, he does compare Oasis as a summoned world, so it's implied. Vladimir 4, May 2, 2024. As simplified version of summoning easy and easier version. Reiki, May 30, 2024. How to train your Pokémon. Mr. Grim Death Reaper, April 30, 2024. It's money time. Chapter 203. All day long, the only thing the Uzumaki talked about was the Oasis, the fun things they were doing in this new world, the interesting new things they were finding there, the movies they were watching, the things they were buying, the photos they were posting on the forum and much more. It was clear that people were so excited about this new world that the worries they felt about the impending war they were about to face had disappeared, only for ordinary people of course, as the ninjas, even though they were having fun, still felt the weight and responsibility of keeping their family safe and worry-free. With so much new, the day passed quickly, and since the night was available for them to connect to the Oasis while they slept, before they knew it, it was the next day. The morning was pretty normal, but just after lunch everyone received a notification on their cell phones. Curiously, Almost all of the 4,000 people in the village clicked on the notification as soon as it appeared, and Kushina, who was very excited about this moment, couldn't control her excitement and clicked on the notification as well. This notification was a video, but instead of just an ordinary video, it had an option to summon the person to the video in person through Oasis. In the virtual reality experience of the video, a very lively and enthusiastic soundtrack began to play, and in front of the viewer, two Pokémon were fighting. A small yellow mouse with lightning bolts shooting from its cheeks was fighting a large red wolf with flames shooting from its fur. Suddenly, an animated and familiar voice came from next door. Get ready for an electrifying adventure in the world of Pokémon. If you've never been here before, let me introduce you to this incredible universe. Looking to the side, people saw Mia or Mio, the two presenters of the mobile phone tutorial they had seen in Alex's store. Suddenly, the scenery around them changed to show trainers catching Pokémon, fighting in gyms, and exploring stunning landscapes. At this point, all the Uzumaki watching the video were shocked, and with a smile, Mia continued to explain. In Pokémon, you take on the role of a fearless trainer whose goal is to explore the vast Pokémon world, capture and train these adorable creatures, and become the best trainer of all. As she said this, the scenery changed to show different types of Pokémon in different habitats, each with unique abilities and characteristics. Seeing the different settings, places as new and unique as dark caves with ghosts, volcanoes with fire Pokémon swimming in the lava, the ocean floor with several different types of Pokémon. Aika Uzumaki, who also watched this trailer, immediately thought about how beautiful her family photos would look in these environments. Everyone would be jealous of me, she thought excitedly. Mia continued to explain. Each Pokémon has special abilities and belongs to a unique type, such as fire, water, grass and many others. Your challenge is to build a team by combining different types of Pokémon to create a balanced team, or to focus on a single type and become the best at it to overcome the challenges you encounter along the way. As Mia explained, the surrounding scenery changed to show exciting battles between Pokémon, with powerful attacks and clever strategies being mastered by the two trainers. Mia, in Pokémon battles, you'll face off against other trainers in exciting duels. Use your strategic skills to choose the best attacks, exploit your opponent's weaknesses and achieve victory. As she watched the powerful Pokémon battle in front of her, a large blue water dragon against a fire dragon, this kind of battle sounded like what she had heard about tailed beasts when she was a child. As a retired Chunin, Aika had fought and killed other people before, but when she saw these big Pokémon fighting, she realized that she was weaker than them. If I can capture such a strong Pokémon, won't the children's safety be guaranteed even if Hiroshi goes on a mission? She thought in surprise. Suddenly, the scenery changed again, showing bustling cities where players could interact with other trainers, participate in competitions, and explore special locations. Mia, in addition to battles, you'll be able to explore vibrant cities, meet fascinating characters and uncover mysteries as you travel through the Pokémon world. The journey is full of challenges, but also friendships and unforgettable moments. Seeing these new cities, Mia's first thought was about the different things she could buy to eat, or the new stores she'd never seen before. Changing the scenery again, the video began to show the variety of activities available in the game, from battles to minigames and competitions. Mia, with so many exciting activities to explore, there will never be a dull moment in the world of Pokémon. Prepare yourself for an epic adventure where friendship, courage and determination are just as important as the power of your Pokémon. The scenery changed again, this time to a beautiful field with green grass, and the game's logo began to float in the air, with a phrase forming just below it. In 5 hours, the Pokémon world will be ready for your adventure. Mia, this is the Pokémon world. Prepare to begin your journey today. The world will be available at 1900. Grab your Pokeball and go on this incredible journey. Aika's eyes widened at how incredible this seemed. Everything she had just seen seemed so surreal, as if she was really going to another world to have a new adventure, but at the same time, she would be able to return home whenever she wanted and take care of her family. Wow, I don't even know what to say. Aika sighed as she clicked on the Pokémon icon on her phone and looked at the timer that showed how soon the Pokémon would be available. At this point, after watching this trailer, not only was Aika completely shocked, but the entire Uzumaki population was enchanted by this world. While the people who bought the phones online didn't recognize the Pokémon very well, the people who went to the store in person and saw some Pokémon walking around Alex's store noticed something very important. Will it be possible to summon Pokémon from the other world to this one, as well as summon creatures? With this thought in mind, the first thing most of these people did was run to Alex's store to see if there were any Pokémon left. While these people were talking so animatedly about this trailer, Kushina almost fainted in her room from all the excitement, while Kato was thoroughly analyzing this new world with his trusty ninja, trying to understand as much as they could before this new world opened. They even thought of Pokémon strategies they could learn in the beginning that would be useful to them as time went on. And with the people's excitement about this new world that was about to be created, those 5 hours passed quickly. JHARP April 30, 2024. Can't wait for the sudden collapse of ninja society because their economic system isn't robust enough to handle a sudden massive drain with no stimulation to the economy, since it all gets turned into points for the MC. Modern era has enough inflation and general buffer to handle it, but that's also because you can do currency exchanges in the hundreds of thousands of cash easily. Isolated ninja villages would 100% collapse in realistic terms if there was no effort being made to actively keep their economy alive beyond hiring 2 people for a storefront. There would really need to be ways, from marketing art and online stuff, to working or otherwise earning value for people, or this would sign the death warrant for the entire place that just got their phones for all business, trade and perishables to be ignored for full days at a time. Have a cookie for the collapse of economy. Blob cookie. Reader 8916 May 1, 2024. Well, you aren't wrong. This would screw up the entirety of the elemental nations in more ways than just economically, though considering it's all voluntary, and they do get value for the money, I'm not sure it's really a bad thing. That's kinda an odd point to focus on though, considering the story as a whole. I mean, just the most obvious thing is that he is completely turning the entire Marvel universe upside down, starting with Earth. Makes screwing up the economy of a few small countries on another world rather pale in comparison. Blue Genius May 1, 2024. I wonder how many are going to get. Lopunny, Gardevoir, Ditto, Vaporeon, Incineroar, Machamp, and the others. Don't ask me what the others are. You know perfectly well what I'm referring to. Dora TMA May 1, 2024. And with the people's excitement about this new world that was about to be created, those 5 hours passed quickly. Now that is just a lie. We all know that when waiting for a game those 5 hours never pass quickly. Clear.png. Kashio Tosatsu October 4, 2024. How many years Anna have in this timeline? Hyperion 420 April 30, 2024. Kinda hope Alex buys some musical talent to make a trailer of him in a music video singing the Pokémon theme. Nicola April 30, 2024. MC is financially ruining any world community he is offering his games in. All the money spent on the game or in the game never goes back into circulation. Reader 8916 May 1, 2024. Except that's not really what's happening. What he's doing is more like setting up a country that only uses Bitcoin as currency, taxing transactions. The money doesn't just disappear, it's converted to another usable form. He makes a ton of money, but the world doesn't actually lose much even in the short term, and will make tons long term. He's making deals with manufacturers and whatnot so everyone makes money. It's really no different than when a new major country is established on Earth and is a huge money pit for a while. Or when anyone on Earth opens a huge new market and starts trading with a new partner, leading to a trade deficit until they find something to equalize things. Dora TMA May 1, 2024. At Reader 8916 you would be right if he didn't T spent millions of points to get abilities, and that is something that doesn't T get translated to actual physical wealth but to an energy of sorts, Simply put, the money itself is burned and only its symbolic value goes through an even that eventually fades in economic terms as it gets all poured into him, but he only injects back in non-material ways such as giving people magic, which is cool and all, but it does translate to economic chaos. Reader 8916 May 2, 2024. At Doratma, you mean like every dime that has ever been pumped into consumables, luxury goods, etc. Like, say, a bomb that costs $1 million a pop, that get used 1,000 times a year for training. That is quite literally money being blown up for no specifically quantifiable gain, quite literally turned into energy. Or, at the end of the day, oil, food, both also turned into energy, expensive cars, actually almost anything that humans ever touch. Sure, there's a supply chain that gets money, and an industry that gets created or supported, but when it's all said and done, most of what humans produce just ends up, as you said, something that doesn't get translated to actual fiscal wealth but to an energy of sorts. Almost everything we ever buy throughout our lives, as you said, is burned and only its symbolic value remains. I get what you are saying, but if you actually think about it, the way you described what is happening in this story can be applied to nearly every single thing we own or interact with if you go far enough down the line. Honestly, I think just making people capable of magic healing would be far, far more disruptive to the economy than simply taking $1 trillion or 10 out of circulation. Even then, I imagine it would only take a month or two before people start figuring out how to make money off of it to offset the loss. Right now the US pays nearly $700 billion a year in interest simply for the privilege of continuing to increase its debt. That is exactly the definition of money burned for no return. And, by the way, I'm only arguing this because I started thinking about it and found it kinda interesting, so not attacking you or anything. Nikolai May 2, 2024. At Reader 8916. All the money that the system eats is pulled from circulation and incinerated. In your example, the money used to make the bomb was swapped hands hundreds of times, even before the bomb was used. That money is still in circulation. The second any money hits a bank, that money has re-entered circulation. Let's say you put $1 million in the bank. The bank holds a 10-25% percentage, and the rest goes back into circulation. Someone asks for $750K, the bank gives it out, and a person uses it. The paid person returns to the bank to deposit the $750K, and the cycle repeats. With every cycle, more money is made. From that original 1M, more than 4M. Now, let's say the $750K was used in the game for things the MC made. That money never hits the bank, never makes any more money, and kills off any cycle that money was in. In practice, it removes from circulation up to 10x the money that was spent in-game. Dora TMA May 2, 2024. At Reader 8916 Yup, as Nikolai explained, the big difference is that discretion of wasting money that you said and literally burning the bills and throwing the ashes in the abyss. Now the reason that I mentioned physical wealth is that if we take by example the cell phones he sold to the Uzumaki, they actually get to have physical goods, which in turn means that while the bill is out of circulation, the money itself hasn't completely disappeared from the world but rather got reshaped into an object that, while not currency, has value in many ways. Meanwhile, when he uses the money to gain powers, while extremely relevant to people's lives, doesn't actually have direct return to the economy in long term, is when people die that power no longer exists and that money will never return to circulation. Even short-term, considering the amount of money he is using for skills, they should notice a decrease in paper money circulating in DC. In fact, even in real life we got times that the government literally asks directly or indirectly for people to put back money in circulation, cause too many people saving money instead of spending can generate inflation and a whole other plateau of problems. When it was 5 minutes before Pokemon opened, Uzumaki Village was practically empty. Everyone was at home or at work, cell phones in hand, waiting for the timer to finally hit 0. In Oasis, after the Pokemon trailer aired, several new buildings sprang up all over the lobby. In total, the Uzumaki counted 8 buildings, each with a different theme, as if each were made of different elements, but what they all had in common was the half-red and half-white ball on top of each of these buildings. When they got closer, they saw that the places were still closed, with a sign with a timer synchronized with the time Pokémon would be released. Realizing the connection between these two things, when the 5 minutes were up, a large crowd of more than 4,000 people gathered in front of the 8 locations around Oasis. Adults and children were all gathered in front of these locations, waiting for the clock to tick down, and when the timer finally reached 0, the glass doors automatically opened as if by magic, and the bravest people finally had the courage to enter and see what it was like inside. Upon entering the place, the interior decoration was very similar to the exterior decoration, with each place having the theme of one of the elements. Upon entering each of these places, there was a polite woman with red hair, just like the Uzumaki, who would lead people to the portal of that place, where everyone could be teleported to any city in the Pokémon world. At that moment, inside the fire-decorated building, Kushina bravely walked through the portal, ignoring the worried cries of her mother and father, and became the first person to enter the Pokémon world. As she stepped through the portal, Kushina felt as if she were passing through a thin layer of water, and when she opened her eyes again, she was in a completely different place. Looking around, Kushina found herself in a village much smaller than the one she lived in. This small village had only a few dozen houses, all very cute and well kept, which made the village very peaceful and comfortable. As she walked around, Kushina saw a building with a Pokeball symbol on it, so she went straight there. Arriving at the place, Kushina slowly opened the door and looked around, understanding that this place was something like a research center, as well as the place where the family's researchers were researching new seals. "Hello?" Kushina asked aloud, a little uncertain. "Wait a minute." A slightly busy voice came from the back of the research center. Deciding to be polite, Kushina nodded and just looked around. On the walls of the research center, there were some photos of a man in his 40s or 50s hugging 2 children. One of the children was a little boy who looked a bit like him, and the other was a boy with black hair and a red and white cap. "This is my grandson and his little friend." A voice came from behind Kushina, startling her and making her jump to the side, ready to fight. When she saw who had spoken, Kushina became a little less alert. "Sorry to startle you, there was a Krabby holding the tail of a Vulpix and I had to separate the two so a fight wouldn't break out, thank you." The man explained with a sympathetic smile. "All right," Kushina replied. "I'd like to know what I need to do to catch Pokémons." Hearing her question, the man showed an expression of understanding and explained. "I believe you're a new trainer, so don't worry, you've come to the right place. In every city, there is a specialized place to take care of trainers, and this is one of them. I'm Professor Oak, what's your name?" he asked. "Kushina Uzumaki." Kushina replied proudly. "What a beautiful name. Welcome Kushina Uzumaki. Would you like to join the Pokémon Alliance?" As soon as Professor Oak asked this, a message appeared in front of Kushina. "Do you want to join the Pokémon Alliance? At a price of 150 Ryo per month, you will have access to various benefits, such as a starter Pokémon from among the 3 starter Pokémons in Kanto, 6 free Pokéballs each month, free and unlimited access to the Pokecenter Pokémon Hospital during the subscription period, unlimited slots on your PC to transfer your Pokémons to the Pokémon Center in your hometown, where they can be stored, cared for, and fed. If the Pokémon's favorability drops to a critical level, the Pokémon will leave, and many other benefits." Closing square bracket. Since she had already received Alex's hint about this, Kushina quickly clicked, accept, and confirmed her subscription to the Pokémon Alliance. When she confirmed this, a beautiful celebratory screen appeared in front of her, after which a bronze-colored Pokémon Alliance emblem appeared and stuck to her chest like a beautiful and elegant medal. Seeing how beautiful that Pokémon Alliance symbol was, Kushina felt very good about paying the 150 Ryo. "I see that you have become a member of the Pokémon Alliance. As you can see, your current medallion is at the bronze level. Every month that you renew your subscription, your medallion will be upgraded until it becomes a silver medallion, which will have even more benefits." Professor Oak explained, making Kushina very happy. Knowing that she could receive even more benefits if she continued to pay the monthly fee, she felt that it would be even more worthwhile, like an investment where the more she paid, the better her money would be spent. Since you're a member of the Pokémon Alliance, you'll be able to choose a Pokémon from the original 3 in Kanto. You can choose between Charmander, which is a fire type, Squirtle, which is a water type, or Bulbasaur, which is a plant type. Each Pokémon has an advantage in one attribute and a disadvantage in another. Professor Oak explained as pictures of the 3 Pokémon appeared in the Pokéballs. Looking at the 3 pictures, Kushina, who was already in love with the Charmander she saw in the real world, didn't think twice and chose the cute little dragon. "I want Charmander," she said in no uncertain terms. Nodding his head, Professor Oak took the Pokeball that contained Charmander and gave it to Kushina, along with the other 5 free Pokeballs and the Pokédex, explaining how it worked. Since Kushina had already had a smartphone for 3 days, she quickly learned how to use the Pokédex and quickly tried to use it on the Charmander she had captured. Charmander emerged from the Pokeball and looked around curiously. He looked at Professor Oak in confusion, and then at Kushina, who was holding his Pokeball in her hand, and looked at her suspiciously, but still took the first step and held out his hand to her. Realizing what Charmander wanted, Kushina quickly reached out and held his hand as well. "I'm Kushina and I'll be your trainer from now on," she said with an excited smile, controlling herself not to hug Charmander and scare him. Charmander sensed Kushina's sincerity and responded with a broad smile. In the original Pokémon world, Pokémon were already very sensitive to human emotions, but sometimes they were very ignorant and innocent, so Alex changed that. In the ninja world, where children are trained to lie, infiltrate and assassinate, Alex didn't want the Pokémon to be tricked and brainwashed by malicious ninjas, so he configured the Pokémon to be extremely sensitive to human emotions and able to tell the difference between sincerity and falsehood. If their trainers weren't sincere with them, they would abandon them without a second thought. Even if someone like Danzo tried to get a Pokémon, it would be impossible for him to officially buy one because no Pokémon would want to follow him. And if he got a Pokémon from another ninja, he wouldn't be able to brainwash it and would probably be attacked by the little creature. Alex had a lot of affection for Pokémon, and he was trying to do everything he could to stop people from treating these adorable creatures as weapons in this cruel world. Even if it meant less profit, he didn't mind. Fortunately, Kushina wasn't someone with bad intentions, and the Charmander sensed that and took the affection between them a few steps further. Golder, May 1, 2024. For someone who doesn't want Pokémon to be used as weapons, he definitely chose the wrong world to implement them. Heck, the whole sales pitch was that they have ninja-level strength and can be exported to the real world. Iona Time Wraith, May 1, 2024. I think you're misunderstanding here. Alex wants them treated as companions and partners going into battle and the ninja and Pokémon having each other's back. Weapon here implies for the Pokémon to be treated like a sword or kunai if damaged or forgotten on the battlefield, no big deal, or abused to do better. Pokémon are creatures of battle. Alex just doesn't want them mistreated in this role. Pokémon should be valued more than a tool to abuse or used until they can't provide any more use. They should be treated as family, unlike Danzo to his root ninja. Golder, May 2, 2024. At Iona Time Wraith, I do understand that, but considering the Anbu route in similar organizations, where even people are trained to be simply weapons, used and discarded for the mission, I think it being a bad world to prevent mistreatment. Even if the ninja treat their partners well, like the Inuzuka, they will still be used as weapons, because that is what ninja are. Although they will go down together with their partners, at least. Iona Time Wraith, May 2, 2024. At Golder, essentially he wants them treated at the very least like the Inuzuka does their dogs. He said it do those that would use and abuse them wouldn't have them. Ursus_Arctos_Arctos, May 2, 2024. I also think that the choice of world doesn't really matter much. Any world that has enough conflict will have people, animals, and just about anything used as just weapons. Even if he introduced Pokémon in the Marvel world, you have groups like Hydra, the Brotherhood, or even regular terrorist groups. All he can really do is try to ensure they are treated as well as one can hope for. Danny Baby July 16, 2024. At Golder Fun Fact, the Inuzuka will execute those found to be abusing their Ninken ninja dogs. The Ninken are to be treated even better than their own children. Aaron J.I. May 2, 2024. I wonder if the Pokemon world is a single-instanced MMO or a single-player experience. If it was a MMO, it would be rather funny to acknowledge the starter bias for Kanto by having a 40% favored proportion of one of them. Chapter 205. When Kushina left Professor Oak's research center, she saw other people with red hair walking around the village, curious, exploring the place, trying to understand how this world worked. As the daughter of the family patriarch, Kushina felt obligated to help the people in her family and called out. "Boys!" Hearing Kushina's call, the other Uzumaki looked at her in surprise and were even more surprised when they saw a cute little red dragon, half as tall as Kushina, standing next to her. Princess Kushina. The people closest to her quickly recognized her and greeted her. Nodding to them, Kushina explained. "Go to this house and tell Professor Oak that you want to become a Pokemon trainer. A hint, it will be useful if you have 150 Ryo to spend." Listening to Kushina's explanation, the people who were still lost gradually entered Professor Oak's research center, and Kushina finally set off on her Pokemon journey with Charmander. While Kushina began her adventure, Alex used admin's powers to see how the players were doing and how they were responding to this new game. To connect with Pokemon, Alex did what ESW did and created several portals through the lobby to give players more immersion. One of the things he worked on was that people could pay a small fee to have their Pokemon circulate through the Oasis, giving the game very effective advertising, and at a negative cost, since he would be paid for the players who promoted his game. The places where the portals were located were inspired by the Pokemon Gym, where there were 8 gyms, each with a different theme. Currently, these gyms only served as portals to the Pokemon world, but over time, Alex would turn these gyms into environments like the ESW Arena, where players could fight and even compete to become the leader of each gym in the lobby. There would be rewards for the gym leader at the end of each month, but if the gym leader lost, whoever defeated them would become the new leader. Of course, each gym would be limited to one type of Pokemon, so to become the leader of that gym, the challenger would also have to use only Pokemon of the same style as the gym, and only the best trainer of that style could become the gym leader. But that was for the future. Right now, Alex was observing how people behaved in the Pokemon world. As far as he could tell, the ninja were the quickest to get information from the game's NPCs about where to go and what to do during their travels. Players were randomly assigned to all the towns, but unlike the original Pokemon games, where the towns became more difficult as you traveled, Alex made it so that the closer you got to a town, the weaker the Pokemon became, and the deeper you went into the forests or caves, the more powerful the Pokemon became. This way, newcomers to each city could catch Pokemon at the beginning of their journey and have fun fighting. One thing Alex didn't add to the game was a quest system. Because he made Pokemon an open-world game, he left it up to the players to make their own journey, discover things in their own time, enjoy the scenery, the different Pokemon they would find in different towns, and enjoy the whole experience. And you could already see that in the difference in how players acted. Those players with less money decided not to pay the 150 Ryo to the Pokemon Alliance and just got a free Pokeball to start with. Since they didn't have any Pokemon, they had to physically fight the new Pokemon around town and capture them. With this initial Pokemon, these players would fight NPCs or other players to earn Pokédollars and buy more Pokeballs to advance in the game. At this point, these players were still exploring the city, looking for Pokemon to defeat. On the other hand, players who had paid the 150 Ryo to join the Pokemon Alliance were now fighting to level up their chosen Pokemon or trying to teach new moves to the Pokemon they were training. Since Alex had made it possible for ninjas to use jutsus in this world, he had also made it possible for Pokemons to learn jutsus by observation and turn them into a skill, but this process of creating a new skill was much more complicated than teaching a Pokemon a skill that it was already inclined to learn due to its species. The most interesting thing to watch was how the Anbu ninjas played. Instead of focusing on training their Pokémon to the maximum, they were treating the game as a real infiltration and espionage mission, trying to get as much information as possible to possibly hand over to Kato at the end of the day. Even seeing this, Alex wasn't too worried, since the information the players could get out into the world was no secret. Not to mention that a lot of that information might not be entirely true. For example, if someone asked a Pokémon if it could reproduce, the Pokémon would answer yes, because that was the truth in the Pokémon world, but if the Pokémon went to the real world, that might not be the truth anymore. Another secret they didn't know yet was that it was much cheaper to pay to take Pokémon eggs to the real world than it was to take adult Pokémons. All of this was considered by Alex to ensure that the experience was fun and interesting, but also to ensure the safety and happiness of the Pokémon. In the game, if a Pokémon was abused by its trainer, it would leave the trainer. In real life, this would also happen, and the Pokémon would even tell the other Pokémon what had happened to it, so that the culprit would pay for what he had done. Looking at the players' different points of view, Alex saw that there was one person who had found the first shiny Pokémon, and surprisingly, it was a Magikarp. Damn, the first shiny is a Magikarp. What are the chances that this person will bring this Magikarp to the real world and the village will get a red Gyarados as its protector? Alex thought in surprise as he imagined the possibility. Help May 2, 2024. How the Pokémon like Baniri and Meowscarada and other humanoids gonna handle the perverts? Considering that the Pokémon world canonically once had Pokémon and human relationships once. Blobcat Smile. Blue Genius May 11, 2024. I mean, let's be real. A non-consenting Pokémon would easily beat the sh*t out of a lone human. Especially the most commonly looted ones, Gardevoir can create AFC King Mini Black Hole. Now, their Pokémon may be the problem. But even then, unless the Pokémon all get released upon the trainer's death, they could kill the trainer fast enough before they can summon their Pokémon. So realistically, a lot of Pokefiles would need to actually be kind to their Pokémon. Aaron J.I. May 2, 2024. Now I want a Poke Ninja with a team made of different colored Magikarps from Poke Jump X. Reader 8916 May 6, 2024. Another secret they didn't know yet was that it was much cheaper to pay to take Pokémon eggs to the real world than it was to take adult Pokémons. They do actually know this, or at least they know that the weaker the Pokémon the cheaper, so it should be obvious. It was discussed in detail several chapters ago. KCCK November 11, 2024. Technically speaking, the humans in the Pokémon world are Pokémon too. Veril May 3, 2024. Uses Magikarp as a bat, whack. Super effective. TFTC by the way. Chapter 206. Charmander, use Fireball. Kushina shouted, but when Charmander heard this strange command, he didn't quite know how to react, so the opposing Pokémon, a lilac rat, ran up to him and hit him with a powerful headbutt, knocking Charmander out. Seeing how badly Charmander was hurt, Kushina began to worry, but knowing that this was a battle that Charmander had to win, she tried to think of the best way to speak the commands so that Charmander would understand. But in the mind of a child like her, it was hard to think of anything that could be really useful at the moment, so she tried to follow her heart and shouted. Charmander, use your fire to burn the rat. She shouted. Hearing Kushina's command this time, even though it was very vague, Charmander managed to think of a way to win the battle on his own, and with a charged ember, he waited for the right moment for Rattata to enter his range and fired. Unfortunately for Rattata, Charmander's ember hit him right in the eye, knocking him out. Well done, Charmander, Kushina exclaimed as she ran up to him and celebrated with him. Despite being a little frustrated by Kushina's orders, Charmander was also happy to have won his first battle and celebrated with her. But he wasn't going to stop there. As a dragon Pokémon, Charmanders were quite proud, and that pride would only grow as Charmander became stronger and more evolved. Until when he became a Charizard, only someone with truly great skills could earn his respect. That was why, in the original series of Alex's World, Ash's Charizard didn't listen to him, since Ash was a terrible trainer for Pokémons that didn't focus on agility. Charmander complained a bit frustrated. Hearing what Charmander said, Kushina could understand his reaction a little and felt guilty. I'm sorry Charmander, I don't know anything about your attacks. I think I should go back and ask Professor Oak for some tips, what do you think? She asked modestly. Hearing the tone of Kushina's question, Charmander was surprised, as he hadn't expected her to admit her mistakes so easily, based on what he had seen of her personality during their research. But seeing Kushina act like that, his confidence in her, which had dropped a few points, quickly recovered and he was very pleased. Even if Kushina wasn't the best trainer, if she was willing to learn and improve to help him, he wouldn't be disappointed in her and would encourage her towards a win-win situation. Charmander nodded, pointing at Rattata. Hearing Charmander's question, Kushina understood his intention and replied. I don't think I want to catch it, even though it's powerful. I think it would be better if I focus on learning how to train you competently first, and only after that open myself up to catching other Pokémon to train them as well. With Kushina's answer, a broad smile appeared on Charmander's face as he realized more and more that he had made the right choice in agreeing to come with her. Charmander pointed to Kushina's backpack and to Rattata lying on the ground. Do you want to give something for it? She asked confused as she picked up the backpack Professor Oak had given her and opened it so Charmander could take what he wanted. With the backpack open, Charmander took some Pokémon food and put it next to Rattata's face, making it wake up excitedly and start eating happily after thanking Charmander and Kushina. Seeing Charmander's kindness and Rattata's gratitude in accepting the food, Kushina felt bad for not catching that cute Pokémon, but she just said goodbye and went back to Professor Oak's office. Charmander's attitude made her realize that Rattata was also a living, intelligent being, so it wouldn't hurt for her to treat the Pokémon she couldn't catch with the same respect, especially when she saw how happy Charmander was to help the other Pokémon. This could be a good way to get closer to Charmander, as well as to thank him for the battle he had just had with her Pokémon. Scenes like this were happening all over the Pokémon world, as players battled with their starter Pokémon, lost the battle or barely won due to the Pokémon's own work, and ended up realizing that they didn't know how to train their Pokémon. The vast majority of trainers went back to the teacher who gave them their starting Pokémon, which earned them favorability points with their Pokémon, while those players who persisted in trying to learn things on their own lost favorability with their Pokémon, and if they didn't help the Pokémon they battled, it almost made their Pokémon dislike them. Since a certain level of popularity was required to summon Pokémon in the real world, only Pokémon who were treated well in the Pokémon world and who sensed the sincerity of their trainers' actions could come to the normal world. To Alex's surprise, the first Pokémon to reach the level of favorability needed to be summoned to the real world appeared in just a few hours. Concerned that this might be a bug, even though systems games never have bugs, Alex went to check what had happened to make such a Pokémon appear so quickly, since he had planned for it to take a few weeks or even months for the first Pokémon to be transported to the real world. The trainer of this Pokémon, who had already reached the required level of popularity, was Riku Uzumaki. Looking at Riku's data, today was the first day that he had connected to the Oasis. From what he saw, Alex understood why. Riku was only 6 years old. Despite Riku's young age, he was already more mature than the children in Alex's previous world, living in a world full of wars where he himself had begun to study to become a ninja. But no matter how mature Riku was, at this moment, he was doing something that only he was doing in the whole world of Pokémon. Looking at the 6-year-old happily swimming in a river full of aquatic Pokémon, Alex had to stop himself from laughing at the situation. On the one hand, people were desperately trying to get better at the game and develop their Pokémon, and on the other hand, Riku was just being a kid and playing in the river. Hee, Riku can swim here without mommy fighting me. Riku laughed as he swam belly up, blowing water out of his mouth. When Alex heard this, he had only one reaction. Fit. Krunks May 3, 2024. For being the first, and his pure nature, the kid should get a free Vaporeon, since it can control water. he'd be able to safely play in the water with it, and it could also help clean up afterwards, which is probably why his mom would fight with him. Blah blah. Henzi May 3, 2024. Okay, that last part was pretty darn cute. Oof for the ninjas though, since one of the few good ways for them to actually dominate in this new world is to be well-adjusted people, something they definitely are not. Pokemon might actually help with that though, since they're violent and strong enough that they can be useful in their jobs, but are also peace-loving enough that it may lead to them mellowing out. IDK if this makes sense. I'm just rambling at this point since it's almost morning and I haven't slept yet. Thanks for the chapter by the way. Iona Time Wraith May 3, 2024. Sometimes it just takes a kid to toss your plans into the garbage that are a D&D or other TTRPG player. Chapter 207. What made Alex laugh was that not only was the boy Riku swimming happily, but a golden Magikarp was swimming happily next to him, circling around Riku. This golden Magikarp was the shiny Magikarp that Alex had seen, the first shiny Pokemon to be captured. Alex thought that since he had found a shiny Pokemon, Riku would train the Magikarp to the maximum so that it could evolve into a powerful and rare red Gyarados. Especially considering that shiny Pokemon are slightly more powerful than normal Pokemon, which would make the red Gyarados slightly more powerful than the already powerful normal Gyarados. But Alex had forgotten that these people didn't even know that Pokemon only had one color, and that shiny Pokemon were very rare. When they learned about Pokemon today, they might have thought that a shiny Pokemon was just like a dog with a different color. It was different because of its parents, and that was all. But when Alex saw Riku swimming happily next to his golden Magikarp, he just smiled and let it go. Riku was only 6 years old, a child who had just started ninja school. This child who would probably lose a large part of his childhood to training to become an assassin deserved to have happy, relaxing moments like this, where he could just swim happily alongside his new friend. The funniest part of this situation for Alex was that Riku, being only a 6-year-old kid, didn't really understand the benefits of paying the Pokemon Alliance monthly fee, and maybe didn't even have the money to pay it, so he just used the one Pokeball he got for free while playing and captured a Magikarp. In a situation like this, Alex didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Riku's luck. Now, he would have to spend a few Pokédollars to buy another Pokeball to catch a Pokemon that would really help him in battle. Alex stopped paying attention to Riku and continued to watch the Uzumaki playing, enjoying the adventures they were having. Seeing how much fun they were having, he also felt that it would be nice to start his journey. Especially since he knew how much fun this world he was making was, how random many things were, which would make the game fun even for him who was making it, because it would also be very challenging, because the game was difficult, and if he didn't use the admin commands, growing up to the Indigo League would be difficult, but fun. So he decided to start in Palette as a normal coach and experience it with the players. I think the only thing I'll have to change with the admin commands is that I want my starting Pokemon to be a shiny, mainly because of its latest evolution. Alex thought as he set up Professor Oak to give him the Pokemon he wanted. As Alex prepared to begin his adventure, guests arrived at the Uzumaki village. Although Pokemon had been released at the lookout points around the village, and the ninjas in charge of guarding the village were eager to play, they knew that their responsibility to keep the village safe was more important, so they were content to look at the photos their friends had posted on the forum with the Pokemon they had caught, and chatted excitedly about which Pokemon they would choose when they got home. I'm going to get a Squirtle, have you seen this? Its evolution is a big fighting turtle. How badass is that? One of the ninjas said excitedly, showing off a photo that a player had taken of a Blastoise walking down the street next to a trainer in a town. Look how cute that Bulbasaur is. Those vines it can control must be very useful. Imagine if you had a Bulbasaur and it used those vines to help you train. I'll choose a Bulbasaur. Another ninja said excitedly, listening to his friend's argument and looking around for anything suspicious. You're wrong, the best starter Pokemon is Charmander, because... But before the ninja could continue, he saw 3 names appear on the scroll in front of him. This scroll was the one that warned when someone broke through the village's protective barrier, and just as it had warned when Alex appeared out of nowhere, it now warned that 3 people had broken through their barrier and were heading for the village. These people were a team of 3 ninjas, 2 men and 1 woman. Intruders have arrived, let's check them out. The ninja became serious and ran in the direction indicated by the parchment. His companions also stopped arguing about Pokemon and went with him, ready to fight if necessary. As they approached, they saw the 3 ninja who had arrived at his village. These ninja were wearing bandanas with the Konaha symbol on their foreheads, which caused their caution to subside a little, but not completely. Identify yourselves, the Uzumaki leader said in a serious voice as he stopped in front of the Konaha ninjas. Nodding his head, the leader of the Konaha team spoke. I am Ren Sarutobi, Konaha's representative on this journey to discuss an important and confidential matter with the Uzukage on behalf of the Hokage. As soon as Ren Sarutobi said this, he handed over a document proving their identity, which made the Uzumaki leader nod and allow them to enter the village, but to make sure nothing went wrong, Takumi Uzumaki, one of his subordinates, would accompany the group. Since Ren accepted this, since it was normal for a ninja to travel to another village, he didn't object and they entered the village. But when Ren and the other Konaha ninja entered the village, they were confused and suspicious when they realized that the village was completely silent. Even though it was night, it was normal for people to stroll through the streets resting after work. But as much as he looked around the village, he couldn't hear anything, no footsteps, no conversations, everything was completely quiet, as if there was no one in the village. To satisfy his curiosity, Ren looked into an open shop and actually saw a person sitting behind the counter, but instead of being attentive to the customers, this person was sleeping in a chair. Unable to resist his curiosity, Ren asked, "What happened? Why is the village so quiet, with people sleeping everywhere?" Hearing Ren's question, Takumi Uzumaki thought for a moment and realized that something like this could not be completely hidden, especially from Konaha, who was considered their ally, and even if he tried to hide it, it would raise even more doubts, so he gave a simpler explanation. Today is the start of a new game, everyone is playing it. Takumi explained. But this explanation made Ren even more confused. How is that possible? These people are clearly not sleeping. Ren pointed to a person sleeping in a shop. Shaking his head, Takumi denied it. They're not sleeping, if you look closely, they're holding devices like this, he said while taking his cell phone out of his pocket. This device is a cell phone, and it's with this cell phone that people are playing the new game. This explanation didn't help Ren's doubts, but it raised more questions, so Takumi, seeing that he wanted to ask more, found a solution. It's not very appropriate for me to explain this, ask the patriarch when we get to him. With this explanation, Ren decided to be patient and wait to ask the Uzumaki patriarch. Chapter 208. You mean Konaha needs a Jinchuriki to be Nine-Tails container because Lady Mito is about to die? Kato asked in surprise. Nodding his head, Ren confirmed it. You Uzumaki are great with seals, and having another Uzumaki as Nine-Tails container would be the safest thing for him and for Konaha. Hearing this, Kato looked at Ren suspiciously. Why didn't you respond to our request for help? Because it seems very convenient to me that you ignore our request for help when we need it, but we have to give you an Uzumaki to contain Nine-Tails when you need it. Kato said angrily. The despair they had felt when Konaha did not respond to their request to help defend the village was immense. If Alex had not shown up and given them a way to get stronger and be able to defend the village on their own, Kato would not have even known what to do. But now that Alex had given him new confidence, he felt that he could ask Konaha. And when he heard this question from Kato, Ren was surprised because he hadn't thought that the Uzumaki would have the courage to question them so openly. Their mission was to get a good Uzumaki to become the next Jinchuriki for Nine-Tails and to offer it as a way to save at least one Uzumaki to earn their gratitude, but things didn't go as he had imagined. I'm sorry Lord Kato, but Konaha is currently in a battle against Iwagakure and we don't have enough personnel to send to defend Uzushiogakure. But look on the bright side, at least there is a guarantee that the ninja you send to become Nine-Tails Jinchuriki in Konaha will be safe even if the worst happens. Ren said confidently while he pretended to say fair things. But Kato was even more furious when he heard this, because he could see the indifference in Ren's voice, as if he wanted them to be grateful that they wanted an Uzumaki to become the Jinchuriki of Nine Tails. Tsunade has Uzumaki blood too, why doesn't she become the Jinchuriki of Nine Tails like her grandmother? Kato asked contemptuously while controlling his anger. Hearing this, Ren realized that this conversation would not end well. Tsunade has only 25% Uzumaki blood. Lord Kato, the Nine Tails is the most powerful tailed beast. We really need an Uzumaki ninja to contain this powerful beast, just like you need a safe place to send someone important to you who can survive this disaster. Ren replied. But every time Ren emphasized that they needed Konaha's help to save a single person from destruction while the rest of Konaha could do nothing, it made Kato even angrier. If he hadn't seen the opportunity to improve himself in the Oasis, Kato might even have thought of sending his daughter Kushina to Konaha for protection while sending other Uzumaki around the world to hide in case the worst really did happen to their village. But he didn't need to do that anymore. The improvement that the Oasis could bring to the ninja was too great, not to mention that Kato, as the biggest supplier of seals to the ninja world, was sitting on a few billion ryo that could help him in the worst-case scenario to bring powerful Pokémons to the battle and pay for those Pokémons to come to the normal world to help in the battle. So when Kato saw Ren Sarutobi's overbearing attitude towards his family, he could not bear it. I think you're confusing things, Ren Sarutobi. It's not us who need Konaha to save a single Uzumaki, it's Konaha that needs an Uzumaki to control the tailed beast you have. I suggest that you and your companions go to one of our inns and reconsider what you're offering. Kato said in a cold voice as he kicked Ren and the other two Konaha ninja out of his office. Ren and the Konaha ninja were shocked that they had actually been rejected and kicked out of Kato's office. In addition to his confusion, Ren was also angry because he had never been treated like this before. As a ninja of the Sarutobi clan, he was treated well everywhere in Konaha because he belonged to the Hokage's clan, while outside Konaha, he was treated well because he was a ninja of Konaha because they were the strongest village. But who would have thought that the Uzumaki would treat them with such indifference? Couldn't they see that this was an opportunity for them? Ren felt that something was wrong, and remembering the cell phone the guard had shown him, his curiosity arose again. After arriving at the guest house, Ren asked the ninja who had brought them the cell phone, since he hadn't had a chance to ask Kato about it, and the ninja replied that they could buy it in a store in the city center tomorrow, and in the store, they would explain exactly how it worked. With this explanation, Ren decided to try to find out what had changed with the Uzumaki. A few days ago, they were begging Konaha to help them defend themselves against the other ninja villages. Now they were acting arrogantly outside while the citizens inside were strangely quiet. It sounded as if something very big was going on and they didn't know about it. So the priority for Ren was to first find out what was happening to them and then make a plan on how to deal with it in order to convince the Uzumaki to agree to send a Jinchuriki to Konaha, and the best thing would be if this Uzumaki sent someone of pure blood, just like Lady Mito, as that would bring even more security to the citizens. While Ren was planning how to convince the Uzumaki to accept their deal without having to compromise, Alex started his journey with his new shiny Pokémon. But the funny thing was that someone had decided to accompany him on his adventure to learn from him. Especially after seeing that for some reason he had gotten a Charmander with a different color than theirs. Dora TMA May 6, 2024. Maybe Kushina and Minato will still meet in Oasis, but unlikely for Naruto to become Kurama*S Jinchuriki. Huey May 6, 2024. So no Naruto. Dora TMA May 6, 2024. And TBH that ISN*T that big of a deal being that instead he will probably learn seals, his father flying Raijin and probably Sage Arts. Epic Slut 01 May 6, 2024. Shiny Charmander Blob High Five. Chapter 209. Mr. Alex, why is your Charmander different from mine? Kushina asked in amazement as she looked at Alex's beautiful yellow Charmander. Looking at the excited Kushina walking beside him, Alex laughed. She had been pestering Professor Oak to explain how to become a trainer, but Professor Oak is a busy man and he couldn't explain more than the basics, but he did tell her where she could learn more and improve her skills as a trainer. Just then, Alex entered Professor Oak's research center, and Kushina saw the perfect person to teach her how to become a good trainer, because as the daimyo of this world, it wasn't possible for Alex to be a bad trainer, right? So she decided to follow Alex and learn from him, even though she had never asked him if he wanted her to follow him. Shaking her head, Alex knew that it would be difficult to get rid of this insistent little girl, and she also remembered that it seemed fun to see Ash travel with friends on his adventure, so having Kushina as an apprentice might be more fun than traveling alone with the Pokémon. Even though Kushina was only a 9-year-old circle, she was a fun little girl who livened up the trip with her many questions. Pokémon have the chance to be born with a special color. This is called shiny. Shiny Pokémon are usually excluded from other Pokémon because they are different, but for us trainers, since these colors are so rare, it makes them much cooler. Alex said as he rubbed Charmander's head. Charmander was now sitting on his shoulder, her tail wagging from side to side, happy to be taken in by a trainer. What made Charmander like this new trainer even more was when he saw the Pokémon this trainer already had, a Mew. Even though he had never seen a Mew before, Charmander could feel the Mew's aura of kindness, as well as a mystical aura that indicated that this Pokémon, although cute and friendly, had a very powerful power. The coolest thing about his new trainer was that he could understand exactly what it was saying. Just like Sabrina, Alex had purchased the psychic power, which not only allowed him to control things with the power of his mind, but also allowed him to mentally talk to other people or Pokémon. Just as he made the powers of mutants work in some games, and the jutsus of ninjas in Oasis, he also made psychic work in Pokémon, so Charmander, as an extremely realistic AI, was very happy to see his trainer talking to him and understanding everything he said, as if he were a Charmander too. "Wow, your Charmander is so cute," she said excitedly. "And your Mew, is he here with you?" she asked curiously as she looked around. To her surprise, Mew appeared floating in front of her as he stroked her nose and replied, "I'm here," in a cute child's voice. "Hi, Mew," Kushina replied excitedly, until she was confused. "How is Mew here?" Alex replied smiling. "We can come to this world through the Oasis, as can Mew is an intelligent creature." Alex had given Mew a cell phone so he could get to the Oasis the same way Bumblebee could. Nodding her head, Kushina understood and continued to ask various questions. "I'm having trouble training my Charmander and commanding it in battle, do you have any tips?" she asked in frustration. After a moment of thought, Alex asked her to release Charmander from the Pokeball. Seeing the cute Charmander appear, Alex smiled as he bent down to greet his new friend. "Charmander, this will be our new adventure companion," Alex said. Looking at the Charmander in front of him, Alex's Charmander became a little scared. Used to being treated badly by other Charmanders since he was born, Alex's Charmander was afraid of being treated badly again. But Kushina remembered what Alex had said when he explained what shiny were and rushed over to help. "Charmander, this is Alex's Charmander, our new traveling companion who will help me become a better trainer to help you grow, let's get along with them." Listening to Kushina's explanation, her Charmander nodded and smiled broadly as he extended his little paw towards Alex's Charmander. With this interaction between the two, Alex smiled and picked up his Pokédex. Pokémon Charmander. Gender: male. Type: fire. Weakness: water, ground, rock. When Charmander is healthy, the flame at the tip of his tail burns powerfully and won't go out even if it gets a little wet. Listening to the explanation of the Pokédex, Alex nodded and explained to Kushina. A Pokédex is an electronic device used by Pokémon trainers to store information about different types of Pokémon. It provides data such as each Pokémon's abilities, characteristics, and habitat, helping trainers better understand the Pokémon they encounter on their travels. Alex explained. "As you saw, my Pokédex only said what type my Charmander was and what its weakness was, but it didn't say what skills it knew, so I'll have to ask Charmander to do that for me." Pointing the Pokédex camera at his Charmander, Alex said. Charmander, can you please use the skills you know? That way, I'll know how to train you better, and we'll be able to act better in battles if I know which skills to ask you to use. Hearing my request, my little Charmander nodded and started using the skills he knew. Starting with spitting fire. Ember. Attack the target with small flames. This may also leave the target with a burn. By the time Charmander has used the Ember skill, the Pokédex has already identified it and stored it as a skill that this Charmander knows, so whenever you want to know what skills your Charmander knows, you can check his Pokédex. Now, your job as a trainer is to help the Charmander improve those skills and get physically stronger until it is strong enough to evolve, Alex explained. Alex explained. For example, Charmander, use Ember, but instead of spitting fire as fast as possible, you will accumulate energy for 3 seconds to create a bigger fireball. Alex ordered. Listening to Alex's command and with the translation of Alex's psychic power, Charmander understood this command perfectly and did exactly as Alex asked. The Ember he made this time was at least 40% stronger than the previous one. You see, this is a different way of using the skill. You can use your brain to think of different applications of the same skill and form tactics to use it in fights in a way that takes the opponent by surprise and guarantees you victory. Alex smiled as he stroked his Charmander's head, making the little boy very happy and the fire in his tail grow larger. Seeing this interaction, Kushina's Charmander became jealous and looked at her with eyes full of anticipation. Listening to Alex's explanation, Kushina finally understood why her Charmander's previous battle wasn't very good, and how she could train her Charmander better. The first thing she did was to take out her Pokédex and scan her Charmander. Pokemon. Charmander. Gender. Female. Type. Fire. Weakness. Water, earth, rock. When Charmander is healthy, the flame on the tip of his tail burns powerfully and won't go out even if it gets a little wet. She was surprised to find out that her Charmander was actually a girl. Seeing that Kushina was starting to train her Charmander, Alex also took the opportunity to try to teach his Charmander some skills he thought were powerful from his previous world. So the two of them went about training their Charmanders, while occasionally finding some Pokemon willing to fight for some food. Since it was possible to play 24 hours a day in the Oasis, and the players preferred to play rather than sleep, Alex reversed the time between the two worlds. While it was daytime in the Pokemon world, it was nighttime in the normal world, so as soon as it got dark in the Pokemon world, it was dawn in the normal world and people were moving through the streets again, but this time the topic of the day was nothing but Pokemon, much to the surprise of the confused ninjas of Konaha. Just a reader R. May 7, 2024. Kushina was only a 9-year-old circle. Circles are cool. BOOKW0RM May 7, 2024. Not as good as rectangles. I like rectangles just like any other human. Spoiler. Sorry, just got done rereading SM. Chillfire 02 August 2, 2024. Hexagons are bestagons. Vladimir 4 May 18, 2024. You have good writing skills overalls. Chapter 210. Look, even without paying the Pokemon Alliance fee, I managed to catch a Weedle all by myself. A boy said to his friend as they walked to school. I had to promise my mom that I'd do the dishes all month, just so she'd give me the 150 Ryo to pay for the Pokemon Alliance fee. Another boy said excitedly. Really? My parents said I should wait to see if this Pokemon Alliance is really useful. What do you think? Which Pokemon did you choose as a starter? His friend asked curiously. I chose a Squirtle. My dad picked a Charmander, and my mom picked a Bulbasaur. Even though we didn't start in the same city, we agreed to meet and explore together. The little boy said happily, making his friend jealous. Damn, why didn't I think of that? My mom was afraid to explore the Pokemon world after my dad died, so I think I can use this to convince her to play and pay for the Pokemon Alliance for me. His friend said excitedly as he took out his phone and wrote down the idea. This was a common scene in Uzumaki Village. Adults and children alike carried cell phones everywhere. When parents discovered that there was a way to know where their child was via their cell phone, It made them spend an extra 15,000 ryo, even though it was a bit expensive for an ordinary family. For the Uzumaki, owning a cell phone became not only something very useful for conversation, but also an object of status. With how beautiful and stylish cell phones were, as well as being so technological, it was cool to have a cell phone. But with the popularity of cell phones among ninja, Alex noticed a problem. Ninjas participated in missions over very long distances, and although the cell phone's network relay uses a mesh system, where the signal from one cell phone is shared with the other cell phones, creating a large network of signals throughout the village, if a cell phone went too far out of range, all of the cell phone's functionality would be wasted. So Alex wanted to launch a satellite into the ninja world to spread the signal even further. Because System had access to very advanced technology from several worlds, the available satellite was much more powerful and cheaper than the satellites in Marvel's world. With a single satellite launched into orbit, Alex was confident that he could cover a large area around Uzumaki village. Since the Uzumaki land was located on an island between Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Cloud Village, with a single powerful satellite, he could cover this entire area of the world and create a possible connection between the villages via the satellite, both for the ninja who were on the paths between these villages, so that they wouldn't get separated, and for the people in different villages, so that they could reach the oasis together. Of course, launching a satellite was too grand to do in secret, so Alex would have to talk to Kato first to get back to his world and then return with the satellite. While Alex was on his way to Kato's mansion, the Konaha ninjas who were wandering around the town were confused about what was happening to this village. When they arrived last night during the Pokémon launch, the village was at a complete standstill, but this morning, the children had to go to school and the people had to go back to work, so life in the village was back in full swing. But being from Konaha, they knew what a lively village was like, so it wasn't surprising to see how excited the Uzumaki were. What confused them was not only what these people were talking about, but also the cell phones they were holding in their hands. Since they couldn't get any useful information about these cell phones from the Uzumaki who accompanied them, they decided to walk around the village today and look for more information about these cell phones. Seeing how everyone used them so naturally and elegantly, the ninja felt as if they were country people arriving in a big city. Is this cell phone some kind of seal they've developed? The ninja girl in the group asked her captain. I don't know, I'm not very good at seal jutsu, but from what I know, doing something like that must be very difficult, even for them. Ren Sarutobi replied as he tried to analyze these cell phones from a distance. He wanted to just walk up to a random person and ask, but after the discussion he had with Kato yesterday, Ren felt embarrassed to just ask about things that might be village secrets so openly. So he just kept walking, looking for the store that the clerk said sold these cell phones. In Ren's mind, something so seemingly magical and technological would be sold with extreme care and description, just like a gun shop in Konaha, which even though it was a public place, you had to pass a background check to buy anything there. But the surprise he got when he saw the large store called Oasis Store, which had several large screens showing impressive images and several cell phones on display on a counter for anyone to pick up at any time, was shocking. It was as if a gun store had weapons available for any customer to pick up at any time, instead of keeping them behind the counter where the store owner himself could pick them up and show the customer what he wanted. Entering the store, Ren and the other two ninjas who accompanied him were shocked by the place. The large screens showing images of other places were something they had never seen before, in a way they couldn't even imagine. Is that a genjutsu? The ninja girl named Emi Akato was shocked as she looked at the screen showing a scene of a large green field with two summoning beasts fighting in front of two people. This may look like genjutsu, but it's just technology. An attendant approached them and explained. At first, he was confused by the fact that the people still didn't know about cell phones, but when he saw their different hair colors and the bandana with the Konaha symbol, it became clear why they didn't know about cell phones. Technology. How is that possible? Emi asked in shock. Even we don't really know. This shop was opened by the daimyo of the Oasis through a partnership with our daimyo Uzumaki. The attendant explained proudly. This matter became a source of pride for the Uzumaki when they discovered that they were the first family Alex had approached for a partnership, making their village the most technologically advanced in the world. Even more so when they saw that even the ninjas of Konaha, the most powerful village in the ninja world, acted like country bumpkins when they came to their village. This ninja felt that he should use this moment to show how incredible they were. To further contribute to this, the ninja said, Mio, can you help me with this? As soon as the attendant said this, the image on the large screen that the Konaha ninjas were so fond of changed to show two people with features that reminded them of Uzumaki. Sure Kenji, hello guests, would you like to know more about the cell phones? Mia said pleasantly. Seeing these two people appear in front of them and not being able to feel anything made the Konaha ninjas go on full alert, because with each passing moment, it seemed more and more like they were in a genjutsu, experiencing things that could never happen in the real world. Henzi May 7, 2024. I just thought of this now, but how would legendary Pokémon measure up to the tailed beasts? Like, in the games there's the leveling system which makes it so that even a Caterpie could defeat Arceus if the level gap was big enough, but in the lore, just one legendary Pokémon could utterly wreck an entire continent. Thanks for the chapter by the way. Nimea 00 July 17, 2024. Yeah, if you go by Pokédex lore, Pokemos like Regigigas that are said to move continents would cause massive chaos. Zerberos May 7, 2024. I have no clue if you read these comments, but for the satellite deployment, there is a much easier way to set them up than when rockets are a big show, especially since the MC has Pokémon. Have Mew just fly up into space, and set one up. In fact a dozen could be set up, making coverage for a country or the world even, and as you left Mew to not be space able, I'm betting Alex would have enough to bring out a Deoxys that would easily take satellites up also. But hey, just in case you haven't gotten that far yet, other words, it was just an idea. Former God of Existence August 31, 2024. While he could possibly do that, just as explained in this chapter, informing Kato about it will further reinforce their trust for each other. Jetser 0 May 7, 2024. Gun shop in Konaha really. Confirming that they weren't in a genjutsu, Ren Sarutobi and the Konaha ninja looked at the people in front of them through this large window and didn't know how it worked. You can talk to Mia and Mio, they're citizens of the Oasis and worked for the daimyo there. The attendant explained as he pointed at them. Mia smiled and nodded. Where are you? Why can't I feel you? Ren asked what was bothering him. Smiling, Mio answered. We're in Oasis, thanks to cell phone technology, we can talk even if we're not in the same place. For example, this is my cell phone. Taking his cell phone out of his pocket, Mio pointed to the screen and clicked a few buttons. With my cell phone in hand and just a few clicks, I can instantly communicate with someone else's cell phone. Mio explained. Ding, ding, ding. As soon as he had finished speaking, a noise came from Kenji, the salesman, which made the Konaha ninja go on alert again. But Kenji was patient and slowly took his cell phone out of his pocket, clicked to answer the call, and changed the image to one from the cell phone camera that Mio was holding. It was all just a virtually generated image, since Mio didn't exist and didn't even have a phone. But because it was connected to the Oasis AI, it was possible to simulate as if they were really on a call. Seeing Mio's face appear on the small device in Kenji's hand, Ren and the two ninjas were completely shocked. Especially Ren, since he was the team leader and a direct subordinate of the Hokage, he could immediately see the usefulness of this device as a means of transmitting information in a war. How far can this thing transmit information? Ren asked. Thinking for a moment, Kenji was about to answer, but Mia was quicker. Currently, the distance is only a few kilometers, but in a few days, it will triangulate the area between Leaf Village, Mist Village, and Cloud Village. Even though Mia said this calmly, these words were like a bomb in Ren's ear. You mean this device would allow me to talk to a person in Konaha in real time while I'm here? Ren asked, confirming that his assumption was correct. Exactly. Mia confirmed with a smile. These words were like a bombshell for Ren and Kenji, who hadn't known about it until now. At that moment, Kenji took out his cell phone and typed this message to Kato, making sure that Kato knew about it. What he didn't know was that Kato knew about it too, because 5 minutes ago Alex had arrived in his office and told him what he wanted to do. So you want to send a machine into the sky so that the cell phone can communicate even further? Kato asked confused. Yes, the satellite will be responsible for relaying the signal between the cell phones so that they can send messages all over this room. Alex said as he pointed to the 3 large countries on the map. Nodding his head, Kato tried to process the information. For someone who already knew that Alex was able to get them in touch with people from another world through the arena, it was even easier for him to get them to communicate with people from other countries via cell phone. Still, he imagined it would take longer. How is that thing in the sky going to help cell phones connect so far away? Kato asked confused. Thinking about how to explain it, Alex had an idea. Picking up a cell phone, Alex explained. Right now, my cell phone is sending little signals to your cell phone all the time. With the satellite in the sky, cell phones will be able to send these signals to the sky, which is easier, and the satellite will pick up these signals and send them to the cell phone you want to contact. That's still very confusing. Kato shook his head. But what do you want help with? I'm going to go out for the day and bring the satellite here. I just need you to help me find some open, quiet ground where I can send the satellite into the sky without being interrupted. Preferably this land should be further away from the village because it will make a lot of noise and I don't want to scare the people, Alex explained. Nodding his head, Kato realized that this was almost nothing compared to the favor Alex was doing for their village. Sure, no problem, I'll send ninjas to find the perfect place and tomorrow I'll take you there myself to send your satellite into the sky. Do you need help to get this thing up? Kato asked because he didn't know how big the satellite was. No need, I have a friend who will help me bring it over. Alex nodded as he thought of B. Okay, then when you arrive tomorrow, I'll take you to the place. Kato confirmed. See you tomorrow then. Alex waved as he left. As he left Kato's mansion, he passed the cell phone store and saw 4 ninjas buying cell phones. One of the instructions he had given to the Oasis AI that controlled Mio and Mia was that they could sell the cell phones to anyone, but the only restriction was that people from other villages could only buy 1 cell phone each. I don't want anyone tarnishing Oasis's image around the world, not to mention the fact that these people might find a way to circumvent Oasis's system to resell the phones for more, so it's best to leave the distribution of these in my hands alone. Alex thought. Even if it takes me a little longer to reach all the cities in the ninja world, I can open sales centers in the big villages and the capitals of the countries and hire ninjas to deliver to the smaller towns. Alex began to think. He even began to plan how he could make deliveries safer, using the internet to reduce the likelihood of deliverers running into crooks, even trying to force crooks not to steal deliveries from cell phones by threatening to ban them from the internet. The whole sales and distribution system was still being put together in Alex's mind, but for now his focus should remain on getting home and bringing a satellite with B. Summoning the ice horse and making sure no one was following him, Alex found a place farthest away from the city and used the Mangekyo Sharingan to teleport from there. Returning to his hut, Alex really missed it. When he arrived at the garage, B wasn't logged in, but was sitting on his giant sofa playing Mortal Kombat with Abomination. The two had become friends over time, so this scene didn't surprise Alex too much. Hey B, I need your help tomorrow. Alex said. Turning to Alex, B was surprised. Help with what? I need to take a satellite to that other world we visited once. I'm opening an Oasis store there and since there's no internet, I need to launch my own satellite. Can you turn yourself into a truck? Alex asked. Thinking for a moment, B replied. I can do that, but I don't think it will be very comfortable to carry a satellite on me. We can just use the GTR off-road again and attach a trailer to me. I guess that's good, I kind of miss driving the GTR. Alex smiled as he sat in a huge chair in B's living room answering Anna's messages. He wanted to rest for a few more hours before going back to the Oasis and playing more Pokemon. Having Kushina by his side was fun, the little girl was very lively. Does it feel like having a little sister? Alex asked himself, laughing. Comments. BOOKW0RM May 8, 2024. So that they can send messages all over this room. Would make more sense if you used area instead of room. Anyways, thanks for the chapter. Nibishamble May 8, 2024. I recommend that you put a note somewhere that states something along the lines of all of the money that Alex received gets redistributed back into the market either through charities or some other way, just to have a reason for why the market isn't collapsing. Blob melt. Fennis_del_cuz May 8, 2024. Another story I read said the money spent in the system gets redistributed with random people all over the world, like 5 million people each earn $1 more in tips than they thought, or 3,000 people in different states found $10 on the ground. Otatsu_Yumi July 20, 2024. I kinda want Kushina to meet Jean or Natasha. I could actually see Nat trying to adopt her since they look so much alike. Yomiking May 8, 2024. Little sister. Ha 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 ha, wait until she gets comfortable with you, the demands for candy and expensive things will not end. So you put yourself in a genjutsu to be teleported somewhere else with your cell phone? Ren Sarutobi asked, confused. He had never heard of a shared genjutsu. At most, two people in close proximity were put into the same genjutsu so that they could interact with each other and theoretically see the same thing. But a genjutsu where two people in different places could see each other and interact was something completely new. With this tool, the Hokage could hold daily meetings with the commanders of the various fronts of the war without having to rely on messenger animals. Exactly, with the technological development of the Oasis, you can use your cell phone to communicate with people in other places, eat different foods made by talented people from all over the world, have fun in exotic places you have never seen before, including various other activities, such as the ninja's favorite, a fight to the death in an arena. Since this is a virtual world, even if you fight another ninja to the death and die in the battle, your body and consciousness will remain intact after the battle, leaving only the experience you gained in that battle. Mia said with a cute smile. But her words were far from sweet to the ears of Ren and the other ninjas of Konaha. Especially the part about the fight to the death. As 3 Jonin of Konaha, they could see how useful this function of the arena was, and if it was really as miraculous as they said, it could improve the strength of a village many times faster. Remembering how Kato had acted yesterday, Ren began to understand where his confidence came from. With this mobile phone, he could instantly command all the battle fronts, bringing the organization and synchronicity of his village's battle to a whole new level and catching the enemies off guard at any moment. With the training of this arena, he could increase the strength of the Chunin to Special Jonin, from Special Jonin to Normal Jonin, and with such a strong increase coupled with the cell phone communication, what had previously seemed like a losing battle for them was now something they actually had a chance to win. I will have to change the terms of the agreement. Ren thought in frustration. How much does a cell phone like this cost? Ren asked, curious and worried, since such a useful device must cost a few million ryo, right? Each phone sells for 15,000 ryo, and for now, it's only available in black, but in the future, other colors will be available. Mio explained, leaving Ren and the Konaha ninja in shock. That's really cheap. Ren exclaimed, give me 10 cell phones. With an apologetic smile, Mia shook her head. Unfortunately, we can't sell that many, each person can only buy 1 cell phone. Why? Konaha is the richest and most powerful village in the world, do you really not want us to become your customers? Ren asked indignantly. That's not the problem, we don't doubt your money, but since the mobile phone is a new technology in this world, we prefer to keep an eye on who it's sold to and at what price. We know that cell phones are cheap and bad people can take advantage of that. Of course, we know that's not your case, but in order to maintain fairness, the store blocks the sale of only 1 phone per person. Mio patiently explained. Listening to her explanation, Ren could only shake his head in frustration. All right then, we'll buy 3 cell phones, but ask me one question, if Konaha wants more cell phones, will we have to come to Uzumaki village to buy them? Ren asked. Shaking her head, Mia replied. No, In the future, we intend to expand our business and open stores in other cities and towns, and because of the proximity to Konaha and the relationship between the two cities, you may be our next priority." Although it sounded like a simple sentence, Ren realized that there was something to it. At the moment, Konaha was only at the top of this daimyo's priority list because of its proximity to the Uzumaki, but if that changed, the priority could also shift to another village. When Ren Sarutobi thought about facing Mist Village equipped with these cell phones and understanding the problem it would pose for Konaha, he finally realized the problem it could pose for them. "Is that some kind of threat?" Ren asked angrily. But to his frustration, Mia and Mio on the screen didn't change their expressions. Still with a gentle expression, Mio replied, "Of course not, we're just presenting you with our business strategy. How you deal with this information is up to you and your village." Although he was angry, Ren knew that he couldn't do anything about it at the moment, so he bought the 3 cell phones and left after receiving a tutorial from the attendant on how to set up the cell phone with his information and how to use all the functions. Even though he was angry, Ren had to admit that this cell phone was very useful. "Emi, go back to the village and show this phone to the Hokage. We can test the long-distance feature where I can explain the situation to the Hokage and change our approach with the Uzumaki depending on the Hokage's reaction." Ren explained, earning a scene from Emi, the female ninja in their group, leaving only him and the other ninja in the village. Among them, Emi was the ninja with the greatest speed, so she was usually in charge of transmitting information between 2 points. While the journey of the 3 of them to the Uzumaki village took 7 days, if Emi went alone at top speed, avoiding too many stops to rest, it would only take her 3 days. "All right, I'll get my things and go back to the village right away." Emi nodded in agreement. Although she wanted to try to shop at the Oasis, just as Mia had explained to them, she knew that the current priority was to get the cell phone back to Konaha and to decide how they were going to act, since the attack on the Uzumaki was imminent and they needed to make a decision as soon as possible. The next day, to the shock of the Uzumaki ninjas, they heard a very loud noise of a monster approaching their village early in the morning, causing them to go on alert and immediately prepare for battle. Even the 2 ninjas from Konaha were ready to help, curious to know what the monster was that was making such a strange noise. Despite the loud, monstrous sound, it didn't sound like a beast with a tail, so the ninjas climbed up the village wall and looked around to see what was making the noise. Suddenly, they felt Chakra approaching and saw a yellow silhouette coming out of the street toward the village. Comments. Chillfire 02 August 2, 2024. Hello peasants, behold my sentient carriage friend who's millennia ahead of your future. Brop! A loud explosion erupted, leaving the ninjas even more frightened and apprehensive. When a yellow outline appeared between the trees, what they saw was completely strange. Instead of the monster they were imagining would appear, what they saw was a strange-looking and fascinating yellow machine. Imagine a metallic object with complex contours, with wheels similar to those of a chariot but made of metal and rubber. As this thing was made of metal, it looked like a much more resistant and aggressive chariot. The ninjas noticed that some parts of the object shone in the sunlight, reflecting like a mirror, while others were opaque and solid. At the front of the machine, the headlights looked like mysterious eyes, as if they were observing the world around them. As the machine moved, they felt a vibration in the air and heard a thunderous sound echoing through the forest. This sound was unknown, something they had never experienced before. What stopped them from attacking this machine immediately was that through the glass in front of it, they could see Alex with a smile waving at them. "Don't attack," Kato shouted the moment he noticed Alex inside that machine. Slowly they watched the machine approach them with grace, making the men in the group especially fascinated by it. Stopping in front of the villa, Alex opened the car door and smiled at Kato. "Hey!" Alex waved. "Mr. Alex, you almost scared us to death." Kato sighed as he complained to Alex. Seeing that they were frightened, Alex laughed, imagining how frightened they would be when they saw B transform into his robot form. "This is just a car, I think in time you can get used to it at the Oasis." Alex replied as he turned to look at B with admiration. Hearing this, the ninjas around them were shocked and excited. Even Kato couldn't resist asking, Will it be possible to buy such a car in the Oasis? Yes, it will be available in the future. Alex replied with a smile. The Pokemon world was supposed to have cars, but to keep the ninjas from getting so confused, Alex didn't add them to the game. Seeing how naturally Alex spoke to Kato, the respect Kato had for him in the car Alex was driving, combined with the technology that had recently appeared in the village, the Konaha ninjas weren't stupid. That must be the daimyo of the Oasis. Ren whispered to his companion. Yeah, he seems cooler than I thought a daimyo would be. Takeru Shimura replied. That's not bad news for us. Ren added. Back to Alex and Kato. Kato was taking a closer look at the yellow Nissan GTR and was impressed by the machine. So this is like a carriage, but it doesn't have to be pulled by animated people? Kato asked in surprise. Yes, the engine is a machine that only needs fuel. When this car is fueled, it can go as fast as if it had more than 1,000 horses pulling it. Alex explained, leaving Kato and the other ninjas shocked. Whoa! Many exclaimed in surprise. Did you find out where I can launch the satellite? Alex asked as he pointed to the large machine that was being transported on a cart behind the car. After looking at the machine behind the car and not understanding anything, Kato replied. Yes, the place is prepared. If you want, we can go there now. Agreeing, Alex went with a small group to a secluded place while the rest of the ninja stayed behind to protect and keep order in the village. Unfortunately, the Konaha ninja hadn't been invited, but seeing the importance of what they were about to do, they understood that if they tried to pry into what was going on, it could worsen their relationship with the Uzumaki even more, and consequently, with the Oasis as well. While Alex was launching the satellite into the sky, Riku, the little boy who tamed a shiny Magikarp, was happy to have received his allowance for the month yesterday and was able to pay the monthly fee to the Pokemon Alliance. After befriending Magikarp, Riku decided he liked aquatic Pokemon more and chose a Squirtle as his starting Pokemon. But even though he got a Squirtle, Riku still liked his Magikarp and played with them every day. As a young boy, Riku didn't want Pokemon to fight, he just wanted friends to have fun with, and his Pokemon were happy with that. But one day, while exploring the beach after feeding his Pokemon, Riku saw a strange message pop up on his screen. Since you have been a member of the Pokemon Alliance for 24 hours and one of your Pokemon has reached the minimum affinity to be summoned to another world, your conversion will be free since you are the first player to reach this level. Would you like to convert your Magikarp Pokemon to the real world? Seeing the large message, Riku struggled to read it and asked the game to read it to him. So if I want the Magikarp, it can go to the real world with me? He asked confused. Yes. And he won't be able to come back here? Riku asked worriedly. If you leave a cell phone, Magikarp can reconnect to the Pokemon world at any time. But I only have one cell phone. Riku sighed, lost in thought. His pocket money was only 500 Ryo, which was already a lot of money for her, but since he had spent 150 Ryo for the monthly fee of the Pokemon Alliance, he only had 350 Ryo left. If it wasn't free, how much would it cost to bring Magikarp to my house? Riku asked, confused. According to Magikarp's current strength and talent, the cost would be 1.5 million Ryo. Hearing this huge figure, Riku was completely shocked. I want to bring Magikarp into the real world. Riku said without thinking twice. Considering how expensive it would be if he couldn't bring Magikarp into the real world because he didn't have 15,000 for the cell phone, the worst he could do was wait a few months with his allowance and buy another cell phone, or use his mother's cell phone when she wasn't using it. As soon as Riku confirmed this, the Magikarp next to him disappeared. Scared, Riku quickly disconnected from the Pokemon, and when he returned to the real world, his Magikarp from the game magically appeared in the real world. But Riku wasn't the only one who saw this. His mother, who was also at the Oasis, heard a strange noise in the house and was shocked by what she saw. Aaron J.I. May 16, 2024. New isekai just dropped. I was living my life peacefully as a Magikarp with my 6-year-old trainer, but he summoned me to another world to fight against ninja. Vich May 16, 2024. It's for novels like these I wish I could see the future. Like really, it torture waiting for new chapters. Blob Sweat 2. Chapter 214. With the conversion of Riku's Magikarp, the Pokémon was completely converted to the real world as a real Pokémon. This was free because Alex wanted to use it as a promotion for the game and set it up so that if a player met certain conditions, the first player to do so would get the Pokémon for free. Of course, he intended to do this more often in the future, just as he had done with ESW, where players learned real-world skills for free. But while ESW was making Alex millions of GP a month in monthly fees, Pokémon was still only making a few hundred. Alex saw it as an investment, so he wouldn't give Pokémon away for free for the time being, but when the Ninja World was making him a few thousand GP a month, he would start giving Pokémon away to players for free, just like in Elder Scrolls, Warcraft. In addition to Pokémon that could be rescued for battle, such as Riku's, Alex also developed Pokémon that would remain as companions in the real world, but without battle power. Since these Pokémon would have no battle power, the price would also be several times lower. For example, Riku's Magikarp, which costs 1.5 million Ryo in battle form, would only cost 50,000 Ryo as a companion with no battle power. This would be a great companion for ordinary people, as well as spreading the word about Pokémon to other people. If you saw your friend at home with a beautiful Arcanine as a pet, wouldn't you want to have such an amazing Pokémon? Alex often analyzed people's mentality and how he could benefit from it, and Riku was the first case of analysis in this world with Pokémon. Riku, what is it? His mother shouted, frightened and worried. Looking at his mother and the golden Magikarp jumping to the ground, Riku finally realized the problem he was in. Mom, help me get a bowl of water to put the Magikarp in. Riku shouted, worried that the Magikarp would die without water. Though scared and confused, his mother also felt sorry for the goldfish struggling on the floor, and ran out to the backyard to get a bowl of water to put the fish in. Unlike normal fish, Magikarp was very large, so even though it was a large bowl, the Pokémon was still cramped in there and couldn't move much. Because of its size, when Magikarp moved around in the bowl, water would leak out and soak the whole living room of their house, so Riku's mother picked up the bowl and took it to the backyard, where it would no longer soak her house. But to her surprise, when she came out with the bowl and Riku by her side, a passerby saw her holding a bowl with a Magikarp in it and was shocked. My God, is that a Magikarp? The person shouted excitedly. Hearing this person scream, other curious people came closer to see. Soon, dozens of people were standing in front of Riku and his mother's house, surprised to see the real Magikarp. Naomi, how did you get a real Pokémon? Did you find it in the wild? A neighbor asked in surprise. This neighbor was a big Pokémon fan who played all the time, so when she saw that her neighbor, Naomi, had a Pokémon in the real world, she became very excited. Pokémon. Is that fish a Pokémon? She asked confused. Yes Mom, it's Magikarp, my favorite Pokémon. Riku explained laughing. I haven't played Pokémon yet, I was running around the Oasis for so long that I didn't have time to see any Pokémon. Naomi explained a little embarrassed. Then how did you get this Pokémon? The neighbor asked something that the other people around also wanted to know. I didn't get it, it was Riku who made that Pokémon appear out of nowhere in the living room of our house. When she said this, everyone looked at Riku, waiting for his answer. With everyone's attention on him, Riku, who was still a small child, was a little embarrassed, but he explained what had happened to him so that the Magikarp could be summoned into the real world. Thank you very much. Kato thanked the Anbu ninja who had just said something in his ear. Invite Riku and Naomi to my office later. Yes, sir. The Anbu ninja replied before disappearing. Hearing Kato talk about Riku, Alex laughed and wondered what had happened. Riku called his Magikarp. Surprised, Kato looked at Alex and wondered how he knew that, but when he remembered that the Pokémon world and the Oasis belonged to Alex, it made sense that he knew what was going on there. Yes, it's causing a stir in the village because everyone wants to see Pokémon in the real world, even if it's just a Magikarp. Kato replied. Just a Magikarp. Haha. Alex laughed without much explanation. But with Kato's sharp mind, he realized from what Alex said that maybe the Magikarp wasn't just a useless fish like people thought. There were people who caught Magikarps these days, but when they saw that the fish was extremely weak, they just gave up on catching it and posted on the forum how useless this Pokémon was. People were even saying that Magikarp was the most useless Pokémon in the game, but from Alex's reaction, that didn't seem to be true. Surprised by this, Kato made a mental note to study Magikarp further and see if there was anything special about it. Only Alex knew that Magikarp was probably the best value for money Pokémon, being probably the cheapest Pokémon, and that when it evolved, it would have elite Jonin strength, or even Jonin directly, skipping the Chunin phase. But the difficulty of evolving a Magikarp was also phenomenal, so the reward was proportional to the risk of capturing a Magikarp and never evolving it. So now all you have to do is push a button and this thing will fly into the sky until it leaves the planet. Kato asked confused as he looked at the satellite set up in front of them. Yes, after that the cell phone signal will reach different parts of the world, which will speed up the expansion of my stores. How about it, do you want to go into business with me? Alex asked with a smile. Hearing this, Kato was surprised by Alex's proposal. Why do you say that? Wouldn't you earn more by expanding on your own? Kato asked really confused. So far, I've only worked with you, but your family probably has shops all over the ninja world, right? My focus is not only on the big villages, but I also want to focus on the capitals and big cities around the world. Cell phones won't just be for ninjas, Alex explained. Alex explained, causing Kato's eyes to widen. Considering how useful cell phones were, he was sure that normal people would be extremely interested in this thing, and considering how much money Alex could make with it, Kato was shocked. All right, there are some big cities nearby that we can help you with. Kato accepted. Alex knew that if he went to each of these cities alone, he wouldn't be able to control these expansions to the entire ninja world in 10 years, let alone less. Especially because the ninja world was so dangerous, it was a good idea to have a powerful family to help him with the logistics and security of his store. Even if he made less profit, the real income was not in the sale of cell phones, but in the spending of the users in the Oasis. Comments. BOOKW0RM May 17, 2024. Actually coming to the Uzumaki first really helps, because they already are a massive, merchant, family focused on seals, scrolls. Which never made sense why others let them be wiped out. BOOKW0RM May 17, 2024. At Henzi just looked this up. The Uzumaki clan was destroyed in the Naruto series by a surprise attack during the Third Ninja War. The Uzumaki were feared for their chakra reserves, regenerative factors, sealing powers, and raw power. The world's strongest nations, including Kumogakure, Hidden Mist, and Hidden Stone, joined forces to ambush the Uzumaki clan's home village, Uzushiogakure, also known as the Hidden Eddy village. The only survivors were those who were away from the village at the time, and the remaining members went into hiding in different nations. Chillfire 02 August 2, 2024. I feel bad about him spreading technology like this to people who didn't invent it or even understand it. It's reminding me of colonialism and forced democratic systems that fell head first into corruption all over again. When the satellite took off into the sky, Kato finally understood why Alex had wanted them to do it in an area far away from the town. With the noise it made as it rose into the sky, Kato knew the townspeople would be scared to death of this thing and think the village was under attack again. But even though they were shocked, Fatio couldn't help but be impressed by the technology Alex was able to control. Who would have thought it possible to build a ship that could fly itself into the sky and transmit its voice and images over hundreds or even thousands of kilometers? Mr. Alex, about our partnership, I think I have a town nearby where we can start selling your cell phones. Kato said after some thought as they watched the satellite fly higher and higher. While Kato and Alex discussed the next city where they would offer the cell phone for sale, Ren Sarutobi and Takaru Shimura explored the Oasis, still shocked at how it worked. Even after exploring this place for hours, it's like the news never ends. Ren sighed in shock as he looked around, trying to see if there were any flaws in this genjutsu. Takaru mumbled as his mouth filled with cotton candy. The food in this place amazed both of them. There were so many new things that they had never tried before that they felt like eating it all. And since it was a genjutsu, the food was extremely cheap and they could eat until they were tired, since the food in this place did not fill them up. But as they continued to explore what they claimed to be investigating, Ren saw a message pop up in front of him. Emi Akato is calling you, do you want to answer? Confused by this message, it took Ren a while to understand what was going on before he quickly clicked the yes button. Hello, Captain Ren. Emi, are you far from the village already? Ren asked curiously. Yes, I'm already a third of the way to Konaha. I'm surprised that the phone works perfectly. I can see the forum posts, I can enter genjutsu. You don't know how good it is to be able to eat something tasty after having to fill my belly with military rations. Hearing Emi's complaint, Ren was surprised that the cell phone worked so well even though she was so far away. Even more so when he heard why she was happy, since he also suffered from the problem of having to eat rations on the road. Being able to enter the Oasis for a few minutes and eat something tasty must be very useful. All right, Emi, just be careful. Since you're in a forest far away from the village, don't stay too long in the Oasis and concentrate on your surroundings so you don't fall into an enemy trap. Ren spoke with concern. Yes, sir. If anything happens, you can report it to me immediately. Ren continued. Okay. After hanging up, Ren began to realize that the cell phone was really as useful as he had imagined. If Emi wanted to tell him this kind of thing, she would have to use a summoned animal, where she would place a scroll on the animal. He would have to know how to summon the animal, so that only at a certain time he would summon the animal and transmit the information, but with the cell phone it was as if they were face to face. As they walked through the Oasis, they found themselves in front of one of the Pokemon gyms. Seeing so many Uzumaki going in and out of that place, the two looked at each other and decided to go in and investigate as well. Is it okay to let this carriage drive itself, Mr. Alex? Kusuke Uzumaki asked worriedly while he held on to the seatbelt that Alex had asked him to put on. At that moment, the two of them were in the yellow Nissan GTR, driving between the dirt roads that led from Uzumaki village to Kazumachi City, which meant City of Peace in their language. This city was one of the big cities, in addition to the capitals of each country. Kazumachi City was a seaside town in the Land of Fire where the Uzumaki had a few shops, as it was the closest large city to Uzumaki Island. Unlike Uzumaki Island, which had a population of only 4,000 people, Kazumachi City had a large population of over 50,000 people. But among those people, there were no more than 100 ninjas, and of those 100, more than 90% were genin. Since the city of Kazumachi was on the other side of the sea, Alex only went with Kusuke to the port of Uzumaki, where they would take a boat to reach Kazumachi. But even though the journey from Uzumaki village to the harbor was short, Kusuke was completely horrified as he stood in this strange carriage that drove through the trees at an extremely high speed, dodging everything that came its way. Although this carriage was much more comfortable than any other carriage he had ever ridden in his life, Kusuke was so afraid of the speed of this carriage that he would have changed everything at that moment to go back to a normal carriage. Don't worry Kusuke, this carriage is my companion, I trust its driving skills with my life. Alex explained laughing while continuing to stare at the screen of his cell phone, which made Kusuke even more afraid. What a joke, arguing with a transformer about his driving skills. Of course, with Dominic Toretto's driving skills, Alex was confident that he would be able to control B to drive even faster between the trees and keep them safe, but since they were only driving at 50 km per hour, B would manage just fine. The fear Kusuke felt was due to the fact that the carriages in this world barely went over 8 km per hour, so to him, sitting in a carriage that went over 6 times faster than the speed he was used to, it felt like they were going to crash and die at any moment. When they arrived at the port, Alex asked B to go back to the Uzumaki village and stay stationed outside, ready to help the village in any situation that would endanger the village if anything happened, and to inform him immediately if anything like that happened. With the power of Alex's spells, he already had the power of a Jonin close to cage level. If he added the power of the Mangekyo he had, Alex was only one level below Hashirama and Madara, but he didn't want to show those eyes in this world, as it would cause him too many problems. After a few hours of traveling, the two finally arrived in Kazumachi City. Looking at this large city with poor infrastructure, Alex felt a responsibility to teach these people some knowledge of engineering and urban planning in the future, but for now he would focus on opening the next store to sell his cell phones in this world. Help May 20, 2024. Kusuke was completely horrified as he stood in this strange carriage that drove through the trees at an extremely high speed. Soranus May 20, 2024. But he didn't want to show those eyes in this world, as it would cause him too many problems. He's from the modern world. He should just wear some cat-eye contact lenses that hide what his special eyes look like, then he could use his eye abilities freely. Dora TMA May 20, 2024. Wouldn't quite work though, since some if not all Mangekyo abilities need clear line of sight to work. For instance, if he used Amaterasu or Kamui ranged, the target would always be the lenses and not what he is actually looking at. One way they tip us at that is that even when going blind none of them wore glasses to try and help with vision. Soranus May 20, 2024. At Doratma, contacts don't block line of sight. And eye abilities work when the ninja is encased in water, so merely having transparent atoms covering the eyes does not block eye abilities. If water works, contacts work. Dora TMA May 20, 2024. At Soranus, when I say clear I mean completely unimpeded, as in nothing in between the target and the focal point, aka the eyes and lenses being solid objects, even if thin one likely means that they would one way or another get in the way. Soranus May 21, 2024. At Doratma, yes. But since water counts as unimpeded merely because it's translucent, contacts would work too. Chapter 216. Arriving in a non-ninja town is a completely different experience than arriving in a ninja village. Although the anime makes it seem like ninjas are extremely common, ninjas are the elite of the elite. Konaha is an example of this, a city with a population of hundreds of thousands, where fans speculate that it probably has around 400,000 people, only has around 20 to 40,000 ninjas. Considering that Konaha is like the center of ninja talent, if it was a normal city like Kazumachi where Alex was now, instead of only 5 to 10% of the population being ninja like Konaha, having 2% of the population born with chakra talent is already very good. This means that in a city like Kazumachi, with a population of around 50,000, security would be provided mostly by genin, which would be good enough to protect ordinary people, but any ninja would be enough to cause chaos in the city. Entering the city with his Uzumaki companion, Alex didn't hide B this time and entered the city in the yellow GTR. Everywhere they went, curious townspeople stared in shock, trying to figure out what it was. Even though they saw the wheels and assumed it was a carriage, the noise the engine made many people think there was a monster trapped inside the carriage and driving it. Alex even asked B to tone down the roar of the engine a bit, not to scare people, but just to keep it at a level that would pique their curiosity. This was Alex's marketing strategy for the city, because I wanted to sell the phones as quickly as possible, so I needed something that would grab people's attention as much as possible and convince them to come into the store to satisfy their curiosity. And it worked. Despite their fear, many people slowly followed the car as Alex carefully drove through the bumpy streets of the city. Since there was no asphalt in this world, he simply kept the off-road form while we drove along, trying his best to cushion the impact of the road's imperfections for Alex. Fortunately, having the Uzumaki ninja made things a lot easier, as the city's protective ninjas let them pass without asking too many questions. They soon arrived at the store, and Alex began unloading the cell phone cases from B's trunk and carrying them into the store under the curious eyes of the hundreds of people around them. Afraid of the monster in B's engine, no one dared to approach, so people just stood and watched curiously, trying to guess what Alex was doing. Is he transporting ninja tools for the Uzumaki shop to sell? One person asked curiously. Probably. Look at his hair and his eyes, he has white hair and red eyes, rides a carriage with a monster in it and brings things to the Uzumaki shop, there's no doubt that this is ninja stuff. A man sighed. Too bad, if it was something we could use, but I can't even control chakra. A woman next to the man also sighed. Alex's unloading of the cell phones ended quickly. To the frustration of the curious people around the shop, Alex put up a black curtain over the shop door, preventing people from seeing what was going on inside. This went on for about 30 minutes. When people were about to leave and give up on seeing what was going on, Alex pulled back the curtain and let people see inside the store, which now looked completely different. What was once just a ninja stamp store, a simple store without much decoration, now looked like something completely different. The store had windows that showed bright images all around, shelves in the middle of the store with small, black, luxurious-looking things, and even the employees changed their clothes and acted more proudly. Finally, the last change took place when Alex and the Uzumaki who came with him left the store and changed the sign to Oasis Uzumaki Store, which glowed. To make sure that people knew that the store was open, Alex even put up a glowing sign that said, "Open." But despite all this, he realized that people were really curious about this store, but didn't have the courage to go near it when they saw the imposing yellow car in front of the store. Knowing that B had already served his purpose, Alex approached him and asked him to leave town for a while, thanking him for his help, but B just honked twice and drove off on his own. This further proved the people's suspicion that there was a monster in that car. Did you see it? The carriage drove away by itself. I knew there was a monster in it. A little boy said as he began to cry with fear, pointing to the car that drove away. Wherever the wagon went, people were terrified and got out of the way. But despite the chaos the car caused among the populace, it only added to the mystery that Alex radiated, making people wonder. Who is that person? He came with the Uzumaki driving a carriage with a monster attached to it. He commanded the monster with ease and even changed the appearance of their shop completely. A woman commented curiously to her husband. Since the monster was no longer in front of the shop, a man gathered a bit of courage and finally found the courage to enter the shop to see what they were selling. Even though he was an ordinary person, his curiosity about these things was great. Even if they were only for ninjas, he wanted to know what they were. The city had no entertainment, so seeing new things was an interesting experience. The people around waited a while to see how the staff would treat the man, as ninjas were usually arrogant and no one wanted to go into the store to be treated badly. But the surprising thing was that the man was treated very well the whole time. At some point, two other very handsome Uzumaki appeared in the large window in the middle of the store and chatted with the man for a few minutes until the man took some money from his wallet and left the store with a big smile on his face. Guys, this place is magical. The man laughed as he showed off the cell phone he had purchased before running home to show it to his family. Unfortunately, this man did not know that his biggest regret was about to come. When his wife and daughter used the phone and wanted one, and he returned to buy one, he would discover the size of the line in the store and regret not buying 3 phones since he was the first customer. With the man's warning that the store was magical and their curiosity already at its peak, many people finally put aside their fears and went to the Uzumaki store. Within a few hours, thousands of people knew about this shop that sold equipment that was far more advanced than ninja equipment, but surprisingly, could be used by ordinary people. C. Fernandez 96 June 11, 2024. I already thought that the author had transmigrated. Seoul July 25, 2024. Publishing stories in the next universe Blobcat Sad. Vich June 11, 2024. Awesome chapter, author, for the love of God and everything precious, more chapters please. Green vs Blue July 13, 2024. Blob angry must pay to upgrade patron account to receive message about writer's block. Nah. Fennis _del_ cuz July 3, 2024. Is this book dead? Reigis June 14, 2024. Oh neat. Thought you ascended or something. Chillfire 02 August 2, 2024. Why is the next button not working? Ah. Shish 1T. Chapter 217, Surprises. When the satellite took off into the sky, Kato finally understood why Alex had wanted them to do it in an area far away from the town. With the noise it made as it rose into the sky, Kato knew the townspeople would be scared to death of this thing and think the village was under attack again. But even though they were shocked, Fatio couldn't help but be impressed by the technology Alex was able to control. Who would have thought it possible to build a ship that could fly itself into the sky and transmit its voice and images over hundreds or even thousands of kilometers? Mr. Alex, about our partnership, I think I have a town nearby where we can start selling your cell phones. Kato said after some thought as they watched the satellite fly higher and higher. While Kato and Alex discussed the next city where they would offer the cell phone for sale, Ren Sarutobi and Takaru Shimura explored the Oasis, still shocked at how it worked. Even after exploring this place for hours, it's like the news never ends. Ren sighed in shock as he looked around, trying to see if there were any flaws in this genjutsu. Takaru mumbled as his mouth filled with cotton candy. The food in this place amazed both of them. There were so many new things that they had never tried before that they felt like eating it all. And since it was a genjutsu, the food was extremely cheap and they could eat until they were tired, since the food in this place did not fill them up. But as they continued to explore what they claimed to be investigating, Ren saw a message pop up in front of him. Emi Akato is calling you, do you want to answer? Confused by this message, it took Ren a while to understand what was going on before he quickly clicked the yes button. Hello, Captain Ren. Emi. Are you far from the village already? Ren asked curiously. Yes, I'm already a third of the way to Konaha. I'm surprised that the phone works perfectly. I can see the forum posts, I can enter genjutsu. You don't know how good it is to be able to eat something tasty after having to fill my belly with military rations. Hearing Emi's complaint, Ren was surprised that the cell phone worked so well even though she was so far away. Even more so when he heard why she was happy. Since he also suffered from the problem of having to eat rations on the road, being able to enter the Oasis for a few minutes and eat something tasty must be very useful. All right, Emi, just be careful. Since you're in a forest far away from the village, don't stay too long in the Oasis and concentrate on your surroundings so you don't fall into an enemy trap. Ren spoke with concern. Yes, sir. If anything happens, you can report it to me immediately. Ren continued. Okay. After hanging up, Ren began to realize that the cell phone was really as useful as he had imagined. If Emi wanted to tell him this kind of thing, she would have to use a summoned animal, where she would place a scroll on the animal. He would have to know how to summon the animal, so that only at a certain time he would summon the animal and transmit the information, but with the cell phone it was as if they were face to face. As they walked through the Oasis, they found themselves in front of one of the Pokemon gyms. Seeing so many Uzumaki going in and out of that place, the two looked at each other and decided to go in and investigate as well. Is it okay to let this carriage drive itself, Mr. Alex? Kusuke Uzumaki asked worriedly while he held on to the seatbelt that Alex had asked him to put on. At that moment, the two of them were in the yellow Nissan GTR, driving between the dirt roads that led from Uzumaki village to Kazumachi City, which meant City of Peace in their language. This city was one of the big cities, in addition to the capitals of each country. Kazumachi City was a seaside town in the Land of Fire where the Uzumaki had a few shops, as it was the closest large city to Uzumaki Island. Unlike Uzumaki Island, which had a population of only 4,000 people, Kazumachi City had a large population of over 50,000 people. But among those people, there were no more than 100 ninjas, and of those 100, more than 90% were genin. Since the city of Kazumachi was on the other side of the sea, Alex only went with Kusuke to the port of Uzumaki, where they would take a boat to reach Kazumachi. But even though the journey from Uzumaki village to the harbor was short, Kusuke was completely horrified as he stood in this strange carriage that drove through the trees at an extremely high speed, dodging everything that came its way. Although this carriage was much more comfortable than any other carriage he had ever ridden in his life, Kusuke was so afraid of the speed of this carriage that he would have changed everything at that moment to go back to a normal carriage. "Don't worry Kusuke, this carriage is my companion, I trust its driving skills with my life," Alex explained, laughing while continuing to stare at the screen of his cell phone, which made Kusuke even more afraid. What a joke, arguing with a transformer about his driving skills. Of course, with Dominic Toretto's driving skills, Alex was confident that he would be able to control B to drive even faster between the trees and keep them safe, but since they were only driving at 50 km per hour, B would manage just fine. The fear Kusuke felt was due to the fact that the carriages in this world barely went over 8 km per hour, so to him, sitting in a carriage that went over 6 times faster than the speed he was used to, it felt like they were going to crash and die at any moment. When they arrived at the port, Alex asked B to go back to the Uzumaki village and stay stationed outside, ready to help the village in any situation that would endanger the village if anything happened, and to inform him immediately if anything like that happened. With the power of Alex's spells, he already had the power of a Jonin close to cage level. If he added the power of the Mangekyu he had, Alex was only one level below Hashirama and Madara, but he didn't want to show those eyes in this world, as it would cause him too many problems. After a few hours of traveling, the two finally arrived in Kazumachi City. Looking at this large city with poor infrastructure, Alex felt a responsibility to teach these people some knowledge of engineering and urban planning in the future, but for now he would focus on opening the next store to sell his cell phones in this world. Comments. Bell. A year ago, I was hoping for a Marvel Game Maker update. 'Cause in Patreon, you have to pay for it in order to read it. I know everybody needs money, but I don't have it myself, so I'm relying for free read, you know. Resonance. A year ago, I didn't know I wanted to read this novel until I read it. Who thought the combination of Marvel and a system to make full dive games would be fun? Large props to the author, because even if it turned out great, it was because he managed to write something engaging. I've read some fanfics on Marvel Universe, but most of the time they are copy-paste or completely abandon what made it interesting at first to focus on fights and powers. Gantavya Dawadi. 2 years ago. Excuse me author, but will you be kind enough to tell me when the novel will be updated? Chapter 218, Magic Shop. Arriving in a non-ninja town is a completely different experience than arriving in a ninja village. Although the anime makes it seem like ninjas are extremely common, ninjas are the elite of the elite. Konaha is an example of this, a city with a population of hundreds of thousands, where fans speculate that it probably has around 400,000 people, only has around 20 to 40,000 ninjas. Considering that Konaha is like the center of ninja talent, if it was a normal city like Kazumachi where Alex was now, instead of only 5 to 10% of the population being ninja like Konaha, having 2% of the population born with chakra talent is already very good. This means that in a city like Kazumachi, with a population of around 50,000, security would be provided mostly by genin, which would be good enough to protect ordinary people, but any ninja would be enough to cause chaos in the city. Entering the city with his Uzumaki companion, Alex didn't hide B this time and entered the city in the yellow GTR. Everywhere they went, curious townspeople stared in shock, trying to figure out what it was. Even though they saw the wheels and assumed it was a carriage, the noise the engine made many people think there was a monster trapped inside the carriage and driving it. Alex even asked B to tone down the roar of the engine a bit, not to scare people, but just to keep it at a level that would pique their curiosity. This was Alex's marketing strategy for the city, because I wanted to sell the phones as quickly as possible, so I needed something that would grab people's attention as much as possible and convince them to come into the store to satisfy their curiosity. And it worked. Despite their fear, many people slowly followed the car as Alex carefully drove through the bumpy streets of the city. Since there was no asphalt in this world, he simply kept the off-road form while we drove along, trying his best to cushion the impact of the road's imperfections for Alex. Fortunately, having the Uzumaki ninja made things a lot easier, as the city's protective ninjas let them pass without asking too many questions. They soon arrived at the store, and Alex began unloading the cell phone cases from B's trunk and carrying them into the store under the curious eyes of the hundreds of people around them. Afraid of the monster in B's engine, no one dared to approach, so people just stood and watched curiously, trying to guess what Alex was doing. Is he transporting ninja tools for the Uzumaki shop to sell? One person asked curiously. Probably. Look at his hair and his eyes, he has white hair and red eyes, rides a carriage with a monster in it and brings things to the Uzumaki shop, there's no doubt that this is ninja stuff. A man sighed. Too bad, if it was something we could use, but I can't even control chakra. A woman next to the man also sighed. Alex's unloading of the cell phones ended quickly. To the frustration of the curious people around the shop, Alex put up a black curtain over the shop door, preventing people from seeing what was going on inside. This went on for about 30 minutes. When people were about to leave and give up on seeing what was going on, Alex pulled back the curtain and let people see inside the store, which now looked completely different. What was once just a ninja stamp store, a simple store without much decoration, now looked like something completely different. The store had windows that showed bright images all around, shelves in the middle of the store with small, black, luxurious-looking things, and even the employees changed their clothes and acted more proudly. Finally, the last change took place when Alex and the Uzumaki who came with him left the store and changed the sign to Oasis Uzumaki Store, which glowed. To make sure that people knew that the store was open, Alex even put up a glowing sign that said, "Open." But despite all this, he realized that people were really curious about this store, but didn't have the courage to go near it when they saw the imposing yellow car in front of the store. Knowing that B had already served his purpose, Alex approached him and asked him to leave town for a while, thanking him for his help, but B just honked twice and drove off on his own. This further proved the people's suspicion that there was a monster in that car. Did you see it? The carriage drove away by itself. I knew there was a monster in it. A little boy said as he began to cry with fear, pointing to the car that drove away. Wherever the wagon went, people were terrified and got out of the way. But despite the chaos the car caused among the populace, it only added to the mystery that Alex radiated, making people wonder. Who is that person? He came with the Uzumaki driving a carriage with a monster attached to it. He commanded the monster with ease and even changed the appearance of their shop completely. A woman commented curiously to her husband. Since the monster was no longer in front of the shop, a man gathered a bit of courage and finally found the courage to enter the shop to see what they were selling. Even though he was an ordinary person, his curiosity about these things was great. Even if they were only for ninjas, he wanted to know what they were. The city had no entertainment, so seeing new things was an interesting experience. The people around waited a while to see how the staff would treat the man, as ninjas were usually arrogant and no one wanted to go into the store to be treated badly. But the surprising thing was that the man was treated very well the whole time. At some point, two other very handsome Uzumaki appeared in the large window in the middle of the store and chatted with the man for a few minutes until the man took some money from his wallet and left the store with a big smile on his face. Guys, this place is magical. The man laughed as he showed off the cell phone he had purchased before running home to show it to his family. Unfortunately, this man did not know that his biggest regret was about to come. When his wife and daughter used the phone and wanted one, and he returned to buy one, he would discover the size of the line in the store and regret not buying 3 phones since he was the first customer. With the man's warning that the store was magical and their curiosity already at its peak, many people finally put aside their fears and went to the Uzumaki store. Within a few hours, thousands of people knew about this shop that sold equipment that was far more advanced than ninja equipment, but surprisingly, could be used by ordinary people. Chapter 219, A Lot of Money. Since the employees of this new store had no time for training, the sales of mobile phones in Kazumachi City were handled exclusively by Mia and Mio, who slowly became the virtual representatives of Oasis in the ninja world. Within a few hours, the store was filled to capacity, and the employees only had to calculate the money and hand over the phone to the customer, while Mia and Mio did the explaining in groups to speed things up. What they did was wait for a group of 30 people to come in, explain to everyone at the same time, answer people's questions together, and when everyone was satisfied, sell the phones to those 30 people. This process took an average of 10 minutes, so in 1 hour they had sold 180 cell phones. In 3 hours a total of 540 cell phones were sold. But at this point the pace accelerated as people with cell phones explained it to their friends, and many people came into the store just to buy the cell phone without listening to Mia and Mio's explanation, so in 8 hours of sales a total of 2,000 cell phones were sold. The price of these phones was 20,000 ryo, with 15,000 ryo going to Alex and 5,000 going to Uzumaki. With 2,000 sales in a single day, this store alone managed to sell a total of 40 million ryo on the first day. Of those 40 million ryo, 10 million would go to the Uzumaki and 30 million to Alex. When the Uzumaki representative who accompanied Alex thought that this money had been earned by selling to only 2,000 people, he began to calculate how much they would earn if all 50,000 people in the city had a cell phone, and he was shocked. This city alone would earn them a total of 1 billion ryo. Of that, 250 million would go to the Uzumaki without them having to do anything but protect Alex, look after the store, and take care of the logistics and customer support. Thinking of all the other cities around the world, all the millions of potential customers, the Uzumaki representative came to see Alex as a savior god for the Uzumaki. Kato, on the other hand, began to doubt his own life when he received a message on the representative's cell phone saying that on the first day alone, they had earned 10 million ryo from cell phone sales. In just 1 day of helping Alex open the store and selling cell phones, they made more money than in a week of missions and selling scrolls around the world. If this continued, Kato could see the army of Pokemon they would have to fight the invaders without fear. Kazuki, I have 2 missions for all of you, Kato said in a serious tone, causing Kazuki, the leader of the Anbu who had received the Charmander from Alex, to appear in front of him. Yes, sir, Kazuki replied. Now that the money is coming into the village, I have 2 missions that you must strictly fulfill. The first mission is that I want a team of ninjas ready to help Alex to open shops all over the world safely and carefully. That's our top priority. Kato said. We're already taking care of it, sir. Since you gave the order to take care of Mr. Alex's stores, we've already been preparing teams to make it work. Kazuki replied. Very well, but I want more focus and seriousness in this. The priority of this mission has increased from a rank B mission to a rank A mission with the possibility of becoming rank S. Kato explained and let Kazuki understand the seriousness of it. Yes, sir. Kazuki replied seriously. The second mission is that I want you to focus in the Pokemon world on finding Pokemons with powerful talents that complement each other. In the near future, each Anbu ninja will be able to rescue 1 genin Pokemon for the real world. Also, choose 2 other people with talents in Pokemon training, so that the 4 of us can train 1 Pokemon each to the final evolution to reach the Jonin level, and then we can summon those Pokemons to the real world. Kato explained seriously. Are you sure, Lord Kato? The price of Pokemon Jonin is very high, the family's savings will be empty after that. Kazuki tried to advise. Don't worry, we still have a few billion ryo saved up, and in the future, more ryo will come into the family. It's better for us to spend that money, survive the coming disaster, and then make more money than to save it and leave it to the looters who will come later. Kato explained seriously, which made Kazuki nod. Yes, sir. Kazuki replied. What is the difference in the speed of training a Pokemon in the real world and the Pokemon world? Kato asked as he looked at the Pokeball on Kazuki's waist. Kazuki also looked at his waist and answered. I noticed that Pokemons grow about 4 times faster in the Pokemon world than in the real world. But that doesn't affect the potential of the Pokemon, just the difference in environment, as if they went from a place rich in chakra to a place with little chakra. Nodding his head, Kato understood Kazuki's explanation. Buying a Pokemon at its first evolution is more economical in the long run, but to train Pokemons as quickly as possible, the best way is within the Pokemon world, so he already saw what his focus would be in the future. He would try to raise the level of Pokémon in the Pokémon world until they were almost evolved, then he would summon those Pokémon while they were still genin, even if the price went up a bit compared to newly captured low-level Pokémon. The difference wasn't that great. Then he would evolve those Pokémon into Chunin in the real world and train those Pokémon to slowly become Jonin in the future, thus maximizing the training speed of those Pokémon and ensuring that their strength wasn't low. Of course, this is only for Ninja Anbu. For children who graduate from high school with great potential, he would fund newborn Pokémon with similar strength to the children, who would go on missions with the children and create bonds of friendship so that the two could grow together and earn money together. Trying to make the Pokémon economy as sustainable as possible. While Kato was making these plans for Pokémon, there was a very clever little girl who found the place where her father kept his personal money and took a hidden portion of it to summon her Pokémon into the real world. Chapter 220, Breaking Boundaries. On the second day that the Pokémon store in Kazumachi City opened, sales rose to an incredible 3,000 units. And it was only 3,000 because it was impossible to sell more than that with just one store. Unlike in Uzumaki Village, where he could rely on the genin to deliver the cell phones, in Kazumachi City, Alex had no confidence in those people and there were only a few Uzumaki who could make deliveries, let alone those who knew the city well enough to know everyone's address to be able to deliver the cell phones, so sales had to be limited to just the store. The advantage was that since Mia and Mio were only artificial intelligences, they could work 24 hours a day, so even in the early hours of the morning they could sell to people who wanted to wait until then. They only needed an attendant to collect the money and hand over the phone while they concentrated on explaining everything to the customers and answering their questions, which increased the sales speed to 5,000 units per day. At that rate, they would have sold phones to the entire population of the city in just 1 week. And seeing how people responded to the phone and to Oasis and Pokémon, Alex knew the phone would be sold to everyone. Just like in his previous world, where a person bought a new iPhone and liked to show other people that they had it, the same thing happened in this world. When a person walked into a restaurant and put their cell phone on the table, everyone around them would be shocked and surprised by it, boosting the ego of the person who bought it and making it a luxury item for them. For the Uzumaki who were still in their village, they were shocked to see thousands of new people joining them in Lobby 75. For those curious people, after chatting for a while and realizing that they were in different cities and could talk as if they were in person, it was a complete shock to them. It was even cooler than the phone calls. Thinking of giving phones as gifts to family members who lived in other cities, people quickly asked Oasis support if they could buy more phones for these people who lived far away, and support replied that each person could only buy one phone, but after 7 days the store would make it available so that someone who had already bought it could buy a second unit, but with the limitation that they would have to sign a contract stating that they would not resell the phone at a higher price, which cut off the idea of many people trying to profit from this. There were still people who wanted to resell cell phones, but they were quickly outlawed. When people in Kazumachi town found out that in Uzumaki Village, it was possible to buy cell phones on the internet and have them delivered to their house the next day, they were jealous. But more perceptive people realized something. The citizens of Kazumachi who had eaten at a woman's restaurant in Uzumaki Village wanted to visit Uzumaki Village just to eat at her restaurant in person. So the smartest merchants saw the opportunity to open online stores, and they quickly rented stores in the Oasis as well. Since the cost of an Oasis store wasn't very high and the cost of customization was low, the braver merchants bought Oasis stores to test. With a world that was even more active in the early hours of the morning, and with the population of 2 cities, Kazumachi and Uzumaki, Lobby 75 became more and more lively. People from Kazumachi City also started playing Pokémon, and it attracted a different kind of attention. The city governors saw Pokémon as a way to get ninjas more easily. Unlike ninja villages, where children with ninja potential were born every few years, in civilian cities like Kazumachi, it was very rare for children with ninja potential to be born. Even if they had money, they couldn't buy such a child, but Pokémon was different. As long as they treated these creatures with respect and affection, they would become great companions and defenders of the city. Since their intelligence wasn't very high, they couldn't go out on their own, but protecting the city wasn't difficult. They could even do it with civilians. So while the civilians of Kazumuchi were focused on catching cute Pokémons like Kato, the rulers of Kazumuchi were focused on getting some Pokémons with decent fighting power for cheap. Although the town had a population of 50,000, its sales and profits were much lower than those of Uzumaki village, which had talented and powerful ninjas and sold seals to the entire ninja world. So while Kato weighed buying hundreds of Pokémon and focusing on the most talented, the rulers of Kazumuchi focused on finding the few with the best cost-benefit ratio. With the new large influx of people in the Oasis, the one who was very surprised was Ren Sachirovi. Even though he had managed to keep in touch with Emi over a long distance, he was still shocked that thousands of people from another city had suddenly appeared in the Oasis. With the proof that even though Emi was very close to Konaha, he was still able to keep in touch with her, he knew that the internet would really work all the way to Konaha. But seeing these thousands of people gave him a new perspective. First of all, it was obvious that Alex didn't care about them and went to sell the cell phones in another town, which gave him a sense of urgency since Alex was now selling them in a civilian town. But what if the next town Alex went to was actually Cloud Village? Wouldn't that be a catastrophe for Konaha? Secondly, seeing the thousands of new people interacting with the Uzumaki in a friendly way, Ren saw the possibility of hundreds of thousands of people from Konaha entering this oasis and interacting with people from other ninja villages. How would that happen? Would they fight in the oasis? Would they use it to gain more information from other villages through new means of espionage? Would they act peacefully in the oasis? All this made Ren extremely confused. Since he was in a situation he had never imagined, his simple mind couldn't even imagine how the people of this world would act. "I have arrived in Konaha, Captain." Emi sent a message as soon as he had passed through the village gates. "Great, now I just have to talk to the Hokage and explain to him about the cell phone and how it can change the world. I hope he realizes the value of this thing." Ren thought nervously, afraid that Hiazen wouldn't realize the seriousness of this matter and wouldn't give it the importance it deserved. Not only was the cell phone a powerful tool for transmitting information, but what he had seen in the Pokémon world couldn't be ignored. Something like that had to be available in Konaha. Chapter 221, A Good Bridge. Young Tsunade had just returned to Konaha from one of the battlefronts and came to the Hokage's office to report on the battle situation and to complain about how tiring it was to be one of the few doctors caring for so many people. But she was confused when she entered her teacher's office and found him and his two other advisors standing around a young ninja girl holding a rectangular device in her hand. "What is that?" Tsunade asked, confused. Staring at the door in surprise, Hiazen was ready to get angry at whoever had acted like that in his office, but when he saw that it was Tsunade, Hiazen quickly changed his attitude and smiled. "Tsunade, it's good that you returned to the safe village," he said. Tsunade nodded at him, but still kept her eyes on the black rectangle in the young ninja's hand in front of them. Seeing Tsunade's curiosity about the thing in her hand, Emi turned her cell phone around so that Tsunade could see it. When Tsunade saw that there were two red-haired people explaining something on the small thing, she became very curious and confused. "How are those people trapped in there?" she asked without understanding as she approached the cell phone. "They are not trapped here, Lady Tsunade. In fact, this cell phone is capable of allowing two people in different locations to talk in real time as if they were facing each other in person." Emi explained with a smile, quite pleased with Tsunade's astonishment. "How?" was the only thing Tsunade could ask. "That is a good question, Lady Tsunade. So far no one knows how it works. The only thing I know is that it's even possible to go to another dimension through a genjutsu, where you can interact with other people who are also in the genjutsu and buy things, eat different foods and experience things from other worlds." Emi explained, leaving Tsunade completely shocked. "Why do the people on the screen look like Uzumaki?" she asked curiously, since she was 25% Uzumaki by blood, since her grandmother was Uzumaki. I bought this cell phone in the Uzumaki village. Emi explained with a smile. But Hiruzen froze when he heard Tsunade's question. What were you doing in Uzumaki village? Tsunade asked, confused and a bit suspicious. We were. Emi started to explain, but a cough interrupted her. Cough cough. Realizing that she had almost made a mistake by revealing information about a secret mission, Emi quickly shut up and said nothing more. But Tsunade was no fool. If Hiruzen wanted to hide something like that, something suspicious was going on. Old man, what's going on with the Uzumaki that you would send your Anbu there in the middle of a war? Tsunade asked suspiciously while she stared at her teacher. That is none of your business, Tsunade. Kaharu said seriously. The Uzumaki are part of my family, of course it's my business, old woman. Tsunade said angrily. How dare you speak like that to an advisor of the Hokage? Kaharu replied angrily as she looked between Tsunade and Hiruzen. Are you going to let your pupil talk to me like that, Hiruzen? Not knowing what to do, Hiruzen was at a loss as to how to react between the two of them. But Tsunade helped him without realizing it. Don't try to change the subject. I want to know what's wrong with the Uzumaki that you would send your Anbu there in the middle of a war. She said angrily. Sighing, Hiruzen answered with regret. Tsunade, you know that your grandmother is not as young as she used to be. That's why we thought of making a deal with the Uzumaki to send us a person with the potential to become the next Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Looking at Hiruzen suspiciously, Tsunade decided to look at Emi as she began to push a little to find out the truth. Although she was only 19, Tsunade was already an elite Jonin, so for Emi, who was still a special Jonin, the aura that Tsunade radiated was quite difficult to resist. But since what the Hokage had said was true, Emi quickly nodded in agreement. Seeing Emi's confirmation, Tsunade realized that it was true, but she still felt something strange, as if something was missing. But when she thought about the reason, which was that her grandmother's health was getting worse, Tsunade was distracted and didn't pursue the matter any further, which made Hiruzen sigh in relief. Look, Tsunade, this cell phone is something we want to buy in Uzumaki village. How much do you think it will help in the war? Isn't it a revolutionary technology? Hiruzen excitedly tried to change the subject while showing her the things Emi had already shown him. With something so new and curious in front of her, Tsunade was really distracted, and with everything Hiruzen talked about and showed her, she got more and more excited about how magical it was. This was made by the Uzumaki? She asked, shocked. No, Lady Tsunade. Emi replied. Actually, it was made by the daimyo of the Oasis, Lord Alex. He opened a cell phone shop in the village of Uzumaki. Now every citizen of Uzumaki has such a cell phone, and a second shop has already opened in the neighboring town, which increases the number of users even more. Hearing this, Tsunade was very surprised. I have never heard of this daimyo. Is this Oasis land new? Tsunade asked, confused. Smiling, Emi explained more about the virtual world, how it worked and how Alex was the daimyo of this world and could rule and control many things there. Hearing about Alex's rights in this world, Hiruzen and his two advisors were attentive and wrote down everything important to understand both Alex's mentality and the limits they could cross in this world. Remembering the friends she made as a child, the Uzumaki children who came to Konaha, or when she went to the Uzumaki village with her grandmother in the past, Tsunade was excited to see this oasis to try to find these people, but still shocked that it could be possible. But the most surprising thing for her was when Emi told her what she knew about Pokemon, and that not only were these monsters powerful, but that the Uzumaki already had people who had summoned these monsters into the real world. This was something that none of them had expected. Hiruzen, who already had a very powerful summoning contract, knew very well how much a powerful summoned beast could increase a ninja's strength, but the thought of how much it could change the strength of an entire family made Hiruzen freeze. On the other hand, when Tsunade heard about the Pokemon and the Pokemon centers with Pokemon that could heal people, she felt something pounding in her chest that made her very excited. One was thinking about the power of Pokemon to take lives, while the other was thinking about the power of Pokemon to save lives. The two had different thoughts and goals, but they had something in common. They saw the enormous potential of these Pokemon and how useful they would be in a real war. Thinking about how the Uzumaki turned him down for a better offer, thinking about how Alex acted towards them, saying that he liked the Uzumaki and that they should have a good attitude towards them to get his favor, and thinking about how useful these Pokemon could be for a war, Hiruzen had to act. And seeing Tsunade in front of him, maybe she could be a good bridge to his idea. Chapter 221, A Good Bridge. Young Tsunade had just returned to Konaha from one of the battlefronts and came to the Hokage's office to report on the battle situation and to complain about how tiring it was to be one of the few doctors caring for so many people. But she was confused when she entered her teacher's office and found him and his two other advisors standing around a young ninja girl holding a rectangular device in her hand. "What is that?" Tsunade asked, confused. Staring at the door in surprise, Hiruzen was ready to get angry at whoever had acted like that in his office, but when he saw that it was Tsunade, Hiruzen quickly changed his attitude and smiled. "Tsunade, it's good that you returned to the safe village," he said. Tsunade nodded at him, but still kept her eyes on the black rectangle in the young ninja's hand in front of them. Seeing Tsunade's curiosity about the thing in her hand, Emi turned her cell phone around so that Tsunade could see it. When Tsunade saw that there were two red-haired people explaining something on the small thing, she became very curious and confused. "How are those people trapped in there?" she asked without understanding as she approached the cell phone. "They are not trapped here, Lady Tsunade. In fact, this cell phone is capable of allowing two people in different locations to talk in real time as if they were facing each other in person." Emi explained with a smile, quite pleased with Tsunade's astonishment. "How?" was the only thing Tsunade could ask. "That is a good question, Lady Tsunade. So far no one knows how it works. The only thing I know is that it's even possible to go to another dimension through a genjutsu, where you can interact with other people who are also in the genjutsu and buy things, eat different foods and experience things from other worlds." Emi explained, leaving Tsunade completely shocked. "Why do the people on the screen look like Uzumaki?" she asked curiously, since she was 25% Uzumaki by blood, since her grandmother was Uzumaki. "I bought this cell phone in the Uzumaki village," Emi explained with a smile. But Hiruzen froze when he heard Tsunade's question. "What were you doing in Uzumaki village?" Tsunade asked, confused and a bit suspicious. "We were." Emi started to explain but a cough interrupted her. Cough cough. Realizing that she had almost made a mistake by revealing information about a secret mission, Emi quickly shut up and said nothing more. But Tsunade was no fool. If Hiruzen wanted to hide something like that, something suspicious was going on. "Old man, what's going on with the Uzumaki that you would send your Anbu there in the middle of a war?" Tsunade asked suspiciously while she stared at her teacher. "That is none of your business, Tsunade," Koharu said seriously. "The Uzumaki are part of my family, of course it's my business, old woman," Tsunade said angrily. "How dare you speak like that to an advisor of the Hokage?" Koharu replied angrily as she looked between Tsunade and Hiruzen. "Are you going to let your pupil talk to me like that, Hiruzen?" Not knowing what to do, Hiruzen was at a loss as to how to react between the two of them. But Tsunade helped him without realizing it. "Don't try to change the subject. I want to know what's wrong with the Uzumaki that you would send your Anbu there in the middle of a war," she said angrily. Sighing, Hiruzen answered with regret. "Tsunade, you know that your grandmother is not as young as she used to be. That's why we thought of making a deal with the Uzumaki to send us a person with the potential to become the next Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox." Looking at Hiruzen suspiciously, Tsunade decided to look at Emi as she began to push a little to find out the truth. Although she was only 19, Tsunade was already an elite Jonin, so for Emi, who was still a special Jonin, the aura that Tsunade radiated was quite difficult to resist. But since what the Hokage had said was true, Emi quickly nodded in agreement. Seeing Emi's confirmation, Tsunade realized that it was true, but she still felt something strange, as if something was missing. But when she thought about the reason, which was that her grandmother's health was getting worse, Tsunade was distracted and didn't pursue the matter any further, which made Hiazen sigh in relief. Look Tsunade, this cell phone is something we want to buy in Uswamki village, how much do you think it will help in the war? Isn't it a revolutionary technology? Hiazen excitedly tried to change the subject while showing her the things Emmy had already shown him. With something so new and curious in front of her, Tsunade was really distracted, and with everything Hiazen talked about and showed her, she got more and more excited about how magical it was. This was made by the Uzumaki? She asked shocked. No, Lady Tsunade. Emmy replied. Actually, it was made by the daimyo of the Oasis, Lord Alex. He opened a cell phone shop in the village of Uzumaki. Now every citizen of Uzumaki has such a cell phone, and a second shop has already opened in the neighboring town, which increases the number of users even more. Hearing this, Tsunade was very surprised. I have never heard of this daimyo, is this Oasis land new? Tsunade asked confused. Smiling, Emmy explained more about the virtual world, how it worked and how Alex was the daimyo of this world and could rule and control many things there. Hearing about Alex's rights in this world, Hiazen and his two advisors were attentive and wrote down everything important to understand both Alex's mentality and the limits they could cross in this world. Remembering the friends she made as a child, the Uzumaki children who came to Konaha, or when she went to the Uzumaki village with her grandmother in the past, Tsunade was excited to see this oasis to try to find these people, but still shocked that it could be possible. But the most surprising thing for her was when Emmy told her what she knew about Pokemon, and that not only were these monsters powerful, but that the Uzumaki already had people who had summoned these monsters into the real world. This was something that none of them had expected. Hiazen, who already had a very powerful summoning contract, knew very well how much a powerful summoned beast could increase a ninja's strength, but the thought of how much it could change the strength of an entire family made Hiazen freeze. On the other hand, when Tsunade heard about the Pokemon and the Pokemon centers with Pokemon that could heal people, she felt something pounding in her chest that made her very excited. One was thinking about the power of Pokemon to take lives, while the other was thinking about the power of Pokemon to save lives. The two had different thoughts and goals, but they had something in common. They saw the enormous potential of these Pokemon and how useful they would be in a real war. Thinking about how the Uzumaki turned him down for a better offer, thinking about how Alex acted towards them, saying that he liked the Uzumaki and that they should have a good attitude towards them to get his favor, and thinking about how useful these Pokemon could be for a war, Hiazen had to act. And seeing Tsunade in front of him, maybe she could be a good bridge to his idea. Chapter 222, Hiazen's Plan. You want me to go with a team of ninja from the Senju clan to help the Uzumaki defend their village and bring a new Jinchuriki to Konaha? Tsunade asked confused and angry. And at no time did you think to tell me that the Uzumaki village would be attacked. Tsunade, you were already so focused on the ongoing war that I didn't want to burden you anymore. Hiazen said, pretending to be worried about her. But Tsunade didn't believe it. She had already seen how intelligent this teacher of hers was and how he knew how to deal with people. I'm glad you decided to tell me this now. I'm going to separate a group of Senju ninjas to go to the Uzumaki village to help them deal with this. Tsunade said with a sigh as she prepared to leave. With a sigh, Tsunade knew that her teacher was up to something, but she couldn't really understand it and wasn't in the mood to think about it too much. Especially when she thought about her grandmother and the possibility that the village of a part of her family could be destroyed. I don't even know if I should tell my grandmother. She thought in frustration, not wanting to worry Mito Uzumaki even more, but considering that she would have to bring several people from the Senju to the Uzumaki, she would have to tell her grandmother, who was the current matriarch of the family. As Tsunade went to tell her grandmother, Hiazen tried to hide the sinister smile on his face. With this move, not only can I secure Daimyo Alex's friendship, but I may also be able to further diminish the Senju's power and influence in the village, he thought. He thought while praising himself for his intelligence. With the Senju losing their political power in the village and the Uchiha becoming more and more marginalized due to the hatred of the people, it will only be a matter of time before my Sarutobi clan becomes the main clan in the village. Apart from him, only his advisors noticed this plan, but they weren't against it since they would also benefit greatly from the Senju's loss of political power. Only Emi remained in the room, unaware of what was happening. As a good ninja from Konaha, she only believed that her village was perfect and that the Hokage was a good man who cared for the village's partners. Emi, you will be the leader of the Senju group in the Uzumaki land. Hiruzen said with a serious voice. Yes, Lord Hokage. She replied with a serious and excited voice. Tomorrow, you'll go back to Uzumaki land, but in the meantime, I want you to show us everything that this mobile phone can do and all the functions that you think are useful for the village. Hiruzen said seriously because he really wanted to know about the mobile phone and how it worked. Yes, Lord Hokage. Emi replied in the affirmative, but suddenly, she thought of something. But Lord Hokage, the cell phone is connected to one person. If I go with the Senju group, the village will have no way to communicate with anyone in the Uzumaki land except for the traditional means. Hearing this, Hiruzen realized that this would be a problem. His idea had been to keep Emi's cell phone and let her go back to the Uzumaki to buy more cell phones for them, but if this was true, then this would be a problem. How is this connected to the user? Hiruzen asked, puzzled. I don't know either. I can lend you the cell phone and you can use it while I'm here, but according to Mia, the Oasis representative, this is an anti-theft measure for the cell phone. If I'm not here while someone else is using the phone, it won't work, Emi explained. Emi explained. She had no idea how it worked, but it was a really good idea because if someone knew about it and tried to steal it, they'd lose a lot of money. But if everyone knew that there was no point in stealing cell phones, then no one would try, because they wouldn't get anything out of it. That's a problem, Hiruzen commented. Let her stay here with us, Hiruzen. Tsunade already knows the way to the Uzumaki village. With the cell phone, we can warn the other two Anbu in the Uzumaki village about the Senju squad that's going and their destination, so everything can be prepared even without Emi's presence to explain it to them there. Homura said a little excitedly, indicating that he had just thought of it. When Hiruzen and Kaharu realized that what he had said made sense, they were surprised because this phone was really as useful as he had thought. This function alone showed how useful it was, not to mention the other various functions they hadn't tested yet. Very well, we'll do as Counselor Homura said. You will stay with us and serve as our spokesperson and communicator between the squadron in Uzumaki land, Emi. Hiruzen explained. Yes, Lord Hokage. Emi replied positively. Since communication is so easy, inform your captain, Ren Sarutobi, of our plan and tell him to prepare for the squadron that will arrive in a few days and to inform the Uzumaki so that they can be more relaxed with us. Hiruzen said. And thinking of something, he added. Or better yet, tell Ren to arrange a meeting with the Uzukage for me, because with the cell phone, I will be able to discuss this with him practically in person. Realizing that the cell phone would be very useful for diplomacy as well, Hiruzen was very happy to realize that he could centralize even more power in his hand without needing representatives to decide things in negotiations like this. In the future, with the cell phone, he could attend any meeting from the safety of his village, and receive credit for whatever he achieved as compensation for the village. When Hiruzen thought about these possibilities and how much he could earn with these cell phones, he became even more excited about having a cell phone and equipping all the ninjas under his command with cell phones. While Hiruzen was fantasizing about the control he would have over the village and Tsunade was talking to her grandmother about what they were going to do in the next few days, Kato Uzumaki was counting the profits from the cell phone shop and adding up the money they had saved and decided that he would finally buy the Pokémon for his Anbu. But suddenly, a worried Anbu came to his office and warned him. Lord Kato, Princess Kushina is accompanied by a Charmander. The ninja said. When Kato heard this, he didn't think anything was wrong. Everyone plays Pokémon, so it's normal for everyone in the Pokémon world to have a Pokémon, right? But on second thought, the ninja wouldn't have come to warn him so urgently if it wasn't something serious, and for it to be something serious, there was only one alternative. Kushina has her Pokémon in the real world. He shouted in shock. Startled, the ninja nodded nervously, which made Kato angry. He knew his daughter and he knew very well what she was capable of. Take me to where she is, I need to see this for myself, he said with a cold voice. Chapter 223, A Battle. In the center of the Uzumaki village, Kushina stood like a magnificent peacock with the cute, fire-spitting Charmander next to her, and the people around her clapped excitedly. How beautiful the princess's Charmander is, a woman said excitedly. Mommy, I want a Charmander too, a child said, tugging at her mother's sleeve in jealousy. Seeing the jealous children around her, Kushina felt at her most glorious. I am the only person in the village besides my father's Anbu with a Pokemon, right now I must be the most beautiful girl in the village, she thought with a big smile, loving the adoration people had for her. But suddenly, she heard something she didn't know. Is it possible to have a Pokemon battle between Princess Kushina's Charmander and Riku's Magikarp in the real world? A man asked curiously. Since everyone had played Pokemon, they were familiar with the battles between the Pokemons of this world. However, they had only witnessed them in the virtual world, and had never seen them in person. Now that there were two people with Pokemon in the village, perhaps they could see a real Pokemon battle. But to Kushina's ear, that was very bad news. I'm not the only one with a Pokemon. And even worse, I'm not even the first to have a Pokemon in the real world, she thought worriedly. What did you say? Someone else has a Pokemon, Kushina said innocently, as if she was just curious. Yes, Princess Kushina, my youngest son, Riku, has a Pokemon as well. He won a Magikarp, and now he must train it in the sea around the village. The man replied proudly, making the other people around him look at him with admiration. How about you make a Pokemon battle for us to see? One person suggested, really interested in seeing a Pokemon battle in real life. Kushina was a little nervous since she wasn't a very good trainer and had only recently started learning from Alex, but considering that her opponent was just a Magikarp, the weakest Pokemon in the game, nothing could go wrong, right? All right, let's go to Riku and have the world's first Pokemon battle, she said excitedly as she hugged Charmander next to her, causing Charmander to roar to the sky in excitement, thrilled at the glorious idea of being the first Pokemon to fight in his trainer's world. Hearing this, the various people around them became excited and began to follow Kushina to find Riku and see this battle. On the way to the beach, several people heard what was going to happen and also followed the group to see this battle in the real world. Even the two ninjas from Konaha heard about it and rushed to the beach to watch this first Pokemon battle and get more information for Konaha. Before they knew it, practically the entire Uzumaki village was heading to the beach to watch the battle. And Kushina, blinded by the glory of being admired by so many people for having a Pokemon, didn't realize that with so many people knowing about it, it would only be a matter of time before her father found out. But she didn't think anything of it, and eventually arrived at the beach to find Riku, a little 3-year-old child, swimming in the sea with a golden Magikarp. Remembering what Alex had said about Pokemons of different colors, Kushina was shocked by Riku's good fortune. The people around her didn't know how rare shiny Pokemon were, but she already knew after Alex explained it to her when she asked why his Charmander was a different color than hers. But that wasn't a problem for her. Even if Riku's Magikarp was shiny, it was still just a Magikarp. While she had a powerful Charmander, nothing could go wrong. When Riku's father arrived at the beach and saw Riku swimming in the sea, instead of training as he said he would, he had to cover his face with his hand in shame. He knew that his son loved to swim, but now that he was having fun in front of the whole village instead of training seriously as he told the other people, it was a bit embarrassing. Fortunately, Riku was only 3 years old, and people just thought it was cute instead of judging him as if he were an older child. Riku, Princess Kushina has come to have a Pokemon battle with her Magikarp, what do you think? Riku's father said as he led his son out of the sea. Confused by all the people around him, Riku became nervous as he looked at his father. Dad, Riku doesn't know how to fight. Seeing the child's nervousness, Kushina felt a little bad and thought that it might really scare the little boy. So she walked over to him and stroked his wet hair while asking in a caring voice, "Big sister just came to show the people in the village how cool our Pokémons are. Don't you want to let people know how cool your Magikarp is?" Although she was also a child, Kushina was 9 years old and had already received ninja training, while Riku was only 3 years old and only played with other children and swam in the sea. Even though Kushina was very playful and acted very childish, it was only in the eyes of the adults, because to the other children, she was almost like an adult. When he saw Princess Kushina talking to him like that, Riku was moved. He had always admired her, and seeing her talking to him like that, and then looking at the Magikarp in the sea, who was staring at him expectantly underneath that bored expression, Riku thought that it might be nice for him. Okay, Riku will try to fight and show everyone the power of the Magikarp, he said excitedly, making the people around him laugh and clap their hands, cheering the two kids on. All right kids, let's have a fair and lively battle. The focus will be on having fun and showing the potential of each Pokémon, Riku's father said as he walked away, leaving room for the two Pokémon to fight. The problem was that even though Magikarp was a water Pokémon, which was theoretically Charmander's opponent, no one believed it could win because everyone knew how weak that Pokémon was and how powerful Charmander could be. Nunu note: I'm sorry for being away for so long. Like I said on Patreon, I was in a really big creative block on this fanfic. Working with characters that already exist is much more difficult than original characters. For now I believe I already have a path in mind to follow and launches will be back to normal. Charmander, take advantage of the fact that it hasn't entered the water and attack it with Scratch. Kushina shouted as soon as the battle began. Since the battle was supposed to be fair, Magikarp wasn't far out in the ocean, so Riku had called Magikarp to stand on the edge of the beach so the two Pokémon could greet each other before the battle, and Kushina took advantage of that. But even though he was only a child, Riku was no fool, so he quickly shouted, "Run, Magikarp!" Hearing his master's command, Magikarp, despite his lack of intelligence, quickly swam deeper into the water, leaving Charmander without a target to attack. At that moment, Kushina was at a loss, not knowing what to do now that Magikarp was at the bottom of the water. But the same could not be said for Riku, who saw that his Magikarp was safe at the bottom of the water and wondered what he could do. Since he hadn't looked up anything about Pokémons, he had no idea how to deal with Charmander. Since he first entered the Pokémon world, he had only had fun swimming with Magikarp and the other aquatic Pokémon he had met, none of which had anything to do with Charmander, so this was something new for him. Looking at the lost Charmander, Riku thought of something. Taking advantage of the fact that Magikarp could hear his commands even underwater, Riku ordered, "Magikarp, attack the fireball in Charmander's tail with your Dragon Ball." Riku commanded, taking everyone by surprise. Since when did Magikarp have an attack with such a powerful name as Dragon Bullet? Even Kushina was shocked and worried. She wanted to order Charmander to move away and dodge this attack, but Magikarp had already stuck his head out of the water, and water was gushing into his mouth at high speed. "Charmander, dodge that," she shouted worriedly, while even Charmander got worried and tried to run away without turning his back on Magikarp. But it wasn't enough, because in just 2 seconds, Magikarp had accumulated enough water and used his attack. When Magikarp started spitting water in Charmander's direction, people were excited to see what would happen to the water, but in just 2 seconds, the water ran out and nothing happened. Magikarp just spit out a bubble of water that fell onto the sandy beach, missing Charmander by several meters. "He just spit out the water?" someone asked confused. "I think so," another answered uncertainly. Kushina and Charmander looked at the bubble of water Magikarp had spit out and were lost. Were they that worried? Riku didn't notice anything wrong with the way other people looked at Magikarp, because to him, this attack was something really cool that they used to play with in the water. He didn't know the name of the attack, or if it even had a name, so he just made up a name for a water jutsu that he heard one day and thought was cool. But even though Riku didn't see anything wrong with it, the Magikarp, who had a high sensitivity to people's feelings, noticed how people looked at him and got angry. Although he was just a Magikarp, he was a glorious, shiny Magikarp, much bigger and more powerful than the other Magikarp in the river, to the point that they didn't even want him around because he made them feel bad. How could those people dare to treat him like that? This feeling of anger and disappointment in himself grew larger and larger in Magikarp's chest, causing a new energy to appear in his chest and begin to feed his muscles. Feeling this strange sensation, Magikarp slowly sank into the water and let this feeling take over him. Ads by PubFuture. But to the people outside, it seemed that Magikarp was embarrassed by the attack and went into hiding, causing Riku to worry about Magikarp and people to feel bad for laughing at a child. Suddenly, an angry voice was heard, causing everyone to look at the person saying it in shock. Kushina Uzumaki, where did you get the money to convert a Pokemon for the real world? Hearing her father's voice, Kushina slowly looked in the direction she heard it, hoping it was just a similar voice, but when she saw that it was really Kato, her father, Kushina realized she was in trouble. "Hi my handsome daddy," Kushina said in a flirtatious way, acting embarrassed with her fingertips touching each other and speaking in a sweet voice. "Don't change the subject Kushina, where did you get the money to buy this Charmander?" Kato asked in a serious voice, causing Kushina to jump and Charmander to ignore the Magikarp and run to Kushina's side to support her. Charmander didn't try to fight Kato, he just ran to hold Kushina's hand with his little paw and Kushina felt much better. I got this from your hiding place," Kushina said with an embarrassed smile as she scratched the back of her head. Hearing this, Kato's eyes narrowed. "How much did it cost to summon Charmander?" Kato asked worriedly. "Maybe a few million ryo," Kushina said softly, but as a ninja of cage level, Kato heard it very well, which made his face darken. "How many millions?" he asked. Kushina simply held up a finger. 1 million, he asked confused. But Kushina shook her head in denial. 10 million, he asked with a raised eyebrow. But Kushina still shook her head in denial. 100 million ryo, he asked in shock. He knew that the price of a Charmander was about the same, so he wasn't surprised that he would get it back when Alex sold 20,000 cell phones, which wasn't too far away. What really made him angry was that Kushina had secretly taken 100 million from Ryo, hadn't told him about it and had gone around the village bragging about her Charmander. Raising her head to look away, Kushina saw something shining in the sea and asked in confusion. "What's that? Don't try to change the subject, little girl, we have to talk about this now." Kato, who was furious, couldn't believe what Kushina was saying. "No, Daddy, look over there, this is serious," Kushina said as she pointed to the light that appeared in the sea. "Oh my god, what is that?" one person said in a startled voice. "Riku, come back right now." Riku's father ran out to grab Riku and take him away from the sea. "My Magikarp," Riku shouted worriedly as he tried to get into the sea to save his Pokemon. Although he didn't believe Kushina, Kato realized that something was wrong, especially when he felt a Jonin-level chakra appear in the sea, which caused not only him to go into alert mode, but also the Anbu around him and the powerful ninjas in the crowd. In a few seconds, they had formed a barrier to protect the ordinary people behind them and were ready for battle. "Patriarch, what is it?" a ninja asked in confusion. "I don't know, but it looks like a powerful monster," Kato said worriedly as he looked at the large creature emerging from the water. "Hey guys, the creative block I had with Game Maker was bigger than I thought. I tried to keep writing the fanfic, but nothing came out, so to make up for it, I decided to use the Marvel Game Maker system idea to develop a new story. No, I'm not giving up on Game Maker, but I need a break to reorganize myself and let my mind rest on this story for a while. Since developing an original story is easier because I don't have to consider the actions of characters that already exist, it gives me the freedom to create original characters that don't interrupt my writing flow to think, what would this Marvel character do in this situation? So as not to leave you without any new content, I've been publishing it on Patreon for the past month and now that it have 36 chapters there, and now I'm releasing it for free here too. This novel will be free like the fanfic, so don't need to be afraid of paid chapters, cut it will not happen. I'm counting on your support. Cheers, NunuXD. Dash 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 dash. God of Internet. Adrian, a 21-year-old game developer, had just graduated from college with a guaranteed position at one of the country's largest game development companies, but instead of his dream coming true, it ended in a car accident after his graduation party. When he woke up, Adrian found himself in the body of a 17-year-old high school student. To his surprise, this guy wasn't graduating from an ordinary school, but from one of the gods. Having taken over the body of a young god, Adrian had thousands of ideas on how to use his divinity of creativity to get as many believers as possible. Can't I use my divinity to make games and ask for prayers for believers to play my games? Do my believers need something to fight monsters with? I'll make Tamagotchi Pokemon so they can summon monsters to fight for them. Do a red fire dragon, a blue water turtle, and a green plant frog look familiar? It's just a coincidence. Is my believers' technology too weak? What changes can an intelligent AI assistant bring to people's lives? When the god of thunder decided to invade the realm of my believers, the creatures he encountered left him speechless. The god of creativity wasn't weak. Where did so many powerful monsters come from? The god of thunder cried out in despair. I'm no longer the god of creativity, I'm now the god of the internet. Adrian said with a smile as he ordered his followers to attack the enemy army. From the young god with the weakest and most underestimated divinity in the class, who no one believed could graduate, to the god the other gods can only look up to. This is the journey of Adrian, the god of the internet. What to expect? A god MC. MC introducing modern things to a medieval world. Lit RPG elements. Kingdom building. Plan for series. 7 chapters per week. How to read it. Open my profile and find it there. Or search for God of Internet. Or go to the collection ranking. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks. And don't worry, the comments thing is only a one-time thing, so please comment me what you think of this.